And so, our petitioner, please, welcome.
So, good evening, everyone. Commissioners, thank you for hearing our proposal. Staff, thank you for your help and guidance to this point. And also thank you to the public for your interest and understandable curiosity and for your feedback as well. The reason we're here tonight, as you mentioned, it's for our proposal for a niche luxury apartment development on the corner of 63rd and Ridge. The location of the property is outlined in a black circle there, and for this we're proposing a 47 unit development, which we think will fit well within the context of the environment. But before we continue any further, we just wanted to go over the presentation agenda. We wanted to introduce ourselves and our company first, briefly, and then, given that this project has yet to be constructed, we wanted to give the public an opportunity to see actual pictures of the developments that we have done and to get a better idea of the project that we're proposing, because it is very similar to what we're proposing for Westmont. And then we'll dive into the actual proposal and a discussion on how it fits into the comprehensive plan. We believe that A&E is the right partner for this project and for Westmont. We bring a multidimensional construction perspective. Our residential, commercial, and industrial experience allows us to really understand the best uses for a potential development and a piece of land. But what I think really differentiates our company in particular is that we're not the large California corporation who doesn't know the neighborhood. Our philosophy is that our interests, we genuinely see our interests as aligned with the municipality and of the neighborhoods and the communities that we invest in. More importantly, we just see ourselves as applying our expertise in achieving the great potential of the communities and the neighborhoods that we're members of. Actually, for this proposal, my uncle lives just around the corner, so we really, truly care about creating a meaningful impact that has a positive, lasting effect on a community. So with that, we're also one of the largest ultra-high-end developers in the western suburbs. The picture that you see up there is a 18,000 square foot house with 24-car garage and a lot of things that I don't think many people really need. But at the end of the day, what I really wanted to show here is that for our company, the same individuals that built that house are going to be the same individuals that built this building and that have built our previous apartment buildings. And the importance of that is that quality, that skill, and that persistence to maintaining the highest levels of workmanship carry through. So we really want to show you now how that carries through in discussing and showing the pictures of a very similar development that we did. Here, as you can see, this is almost identical to the lobby that we're proposing. When you enter, marble floors, TV, fireplace, it's a lobby lounge. This will also have a fitness room and a coffee bar. But when people walk into our apartment buildings, they feel like they're walking into a luxury hotel. And this is what we're proposing for here. Interior shots. I think this is probably the most unique thing about our developments. The insides of the apartments, that picture up there is a one-bedroom apartment, and it is over 1,000 square feet. Here we're proposing similar size one-bedroom apartments. The two-bedroom apartments are the size of many townhouses at 1,200, 1,300, 1,400. But that picture there is a one-bedroom apartment, and because of the size, it has a huge wraparound kitchen, dining room. Typically, apartments, they're generally about 700 square feet. They don't have dining rooms in there. We have dining room, bar area, desk area, as well as the living room. The common areas this is exactly to what we're proposing. When you walk in the hallways, you see the wainscoting done by our millwork crews. And in the ceiling, it looks like people think it's a skylight. It's actually indirect lighting. Everyone that walks into that building, into our buildings, it feels like they're walking through a luxury hotel, and that's what we aspire to build. Here's some additional pictures. These are the 2-bedroom apartments, a better view of the kitchen, although the angle of the photo makes it look smaller than it actually is. But again, I think it attests to the quality of our construction and what we're proposing. But more important, a unique feature is that even in the showers, it's a waterfall shower, rainfall shower with body jets in an apartment building. It's such a small little thing, but I think it speaks to the fact of the types of apartments that we build. The bedrooms, and then the underground parking, which this proposal has. The impact to the community, aside from the construction quality, this particular development, when we came in, it was a catalyst for growth. In 2018, after the project had been completed and after it had been operating, in 2018, this municipality had the highest property value growth rate in all of DuPage County. Property value grew, I think, by 21 or 23%. It beat out every other municipality in DuPage County, and we were the catalyst for it. It's because it's not just build an apartment building, it's build the right type of housing. That's what we're proposing. And the demographics of the residents that we attract, and in this development, it was young professionals and the recently retired. And as a result of that, it has a minimal school district impact. In fact, it just had 3% families, which means it was just one apartment, had a family with children living in it, and they were just about to go to college. The importance of that is that communities where we live in are experiencing something right now where the millennials are not coming here, and the recently retired are selling their houses and moving out. Our developments counter both of those trends. We attract the younger professionals and millennials, and we offer the recently retired an opportunity to live in an incredible apartment because they see rental living as a choice, not as a necessity. And that's exactly who we cater to. And then obviously the revitalization and the tax-based support that comes with it. So with that, I wanted to dive in now into the exact proposal that we have before you. Here's a rendered image of a bird's eye view of what we're proposing. Key things to note is that it has an underground heated parking garage. It is condo conversion ready. One thing that I think the village wants, and understandably everyone with time to be able to convert to condos, simply the market isn't there now, but we build that in so it is ready when the time comes. The brick and stone exterior, it's all brick and stone. And here's another view. Similar to our previous development, our expected residents are high income professionals and the recently retired. Again, those that choose rental living as a lifestyle choice rather than as a necessity. Now, here's an image of the actual proposed layout inside. Exactly what I said before. The sheer size of the apartments is something really special here. The 1 bedrooms are 924 square feet, and the 2 bedrooms are 1,300 square feet and above. That is really unique in apartments. Typically, a 1 bedroom is 700 square feet. 2 bedrooms are the size of our 1 bedroom, and townhouses are the size of our 2 bedrooms. So I think it really attests to what we're proposing. It also has a luxury lobby lounge, a fitness room, and a coffee bar. Elevator access as well. The architectural plans also show the underground heated parking garage as well as storage units. And now I would like to hand it over to our engineer to talk about the specifics of the site plan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Green, President of Engineering Resource Associates. I'm a civil engineer and represent the applicant. I perform the land surveying, the platting, and the entitlement work on the plan before you tonight. The plan on the screen right now is our existing conditions survey It shows the two existing homes that are located on the property, one-story homes with detached garages in both cases. This plan also shows the results of our tree inventory. We had a staff licensed arborist perform species and quality identification of all the trees. And some were invasive, some were not. But as you'll see later in the presentation, we plan to follow and align with the village ordinance in terms of replacement trees, because naturally we're going to try and keep the trees we can, but those that are in the way of the building and the parking lot will be either relocated or more than likely just replanted or replaced, in many cases utilized as screening along what would be either our west property line or our south or our east property line. On the screen before me now is our preliminary site plan. And to orient you about, 63rd Street is to the north. We have not submitted for permit with the DuPage County Division of Transportation, but we are showing an access directly onto 63rd Street. 63rd is 2 lanes in each direction. And we do show an access point, what would be at the northeast corner of our property. We are parked in terms of alignment with the village ordinance. We have 45 parking stalls on the inside of the building and an additional 45 parking stalls on the outside. So we meet or exceed the minimum requirements for this type of use, under the understanding that certain units are 1 bedroom and certain are 2, and there's different type of parking ratios in those scenarios. The building is oriented from the elevations to face north, so the frontage of our beautiful front facade will face north where the main line of traffic is. We've oriented the off-street parking to be in the front of the building, and then by default then our open space, or majority of our green space, is on the south side of the building, which is where our stormwater detention facility is located. And as you know, the DuPage County and your village has one of the most cutting-edge stormwater management and water quality ordinances in the nation. So I suspect there will be a huge, vast improvement to the neighborhood in terms of this property. Right now has no detention storage at all and no water quality enhancements. But in fact, we'll have a detention pond with some native plantings in it, and will definitely be an improvement to the surrounding stormwater drainage systems in the area. The site is surrounded by right-of-ways on the north and the west. We've gone through a review process with the village engineer and the village consulting engineer. We plan to bring an adequate water service and sanitary sewer into the building. The building will have a fire service and also have storm sewer to serve and collect our roof downspouts and our parking lot, of course. The exhibit before you shows some gray shaded areas in the front of the building and in the back, and I'm going to talk about that for a minute. Your zoning code requires a certain amount of open space. This is an area that can be used as passive recreation or an amenity of some sort. So we're planning a bench and a patio area in the back behind the building, perhaps overlooking our detention area. So for sake of reference, your code requires 11,750 square feet of required open space. Our gray shaded area is around 15,000 square feet. And of course, we are not even counting the entire stormwater detention basin in the back, which we believe will have a mixture of deciduous trees that are green year-round, some overstory trees, and of course some native plantings in the bottom of the stormwater facility. Along Ridge Road, we have 2 access points. I spoke of the off-street parking lot before that has an access to 63rd to handle some of our traffic. There's also an access point of our parking lot onto Ridge Road. And then finally, our underground heated parking area has a driveway access point on the ridge, onto Ridge, just a little bit to the south. We've looked at the project from a traffic standpoint, and we feel the fact that the project that has 3 different access points helps separate the flows of traffic at peak times. That would be morning and evening rush hour times. We do not have the results yet of a traffic impact study. Of course, that takes a little bit more time in terms of counting cars and that, but we've, in our review response letter and upon city staff's recommendation, we do plan to go forward with the impact study and make any adjustments as needed at the time of our final engineering and working with the staff and also your consulting engineers. On this page before you now is what we call our preliminary landscape plan. I spoke of some of the existing trees that are on the property. We plan and intend to follow the ordinance in terms of all the required foundation buffer planting and also perimeter planting. We're showing a little bit of a berm along 63rd Street. There's about 25 feet of space that will have an undulating berm with a combination of bushes and shrubs, overstory trees, and deciduous greenery to screen our parking from 63rd Street and also from the residential property to the north side of 63rd Street.
Nitpicking question, is not deciduous a regular tree, not a pine tree? Deciduous,
Deciduous
where
is
leaves fall
green.
off?
Yeah, like evergreens.
That is deciduous, okay, thank you.
No, evergreen is not deciduous.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Okay. So there will be a series of pine and evergreens that will be green year-round, both on the north and the west and the south side within our detention area. So we'll meet the ordinance in terms of perimeter screening, and then we will also enhance all those perimeters with, I believe, we'll need about 29 replacement trees throughout the property with respect to reforestation of the development. One of the listed variances was the building height, and I want to point you to the blow up on the screen now. The main body of the building, the roof line, which would be the underside of the top unit, is actually 33 feet in height. Your code requires 35-foot minimum. So the main part of the roof, this goes that far. No, it doesn't. The architect has created some undulations that kind of break up the bulking and massing of a project, which is common of a building of this style and nature. So the main roof does comply with the village ordinance in terms of height. On the far left side of the front elevation, and again on the far right side, there is about a 3 or 4 foot tall parapet wall to kind of break up all the horizontal lines that happen. And then the part of the project that actually needs the 4-foot height variance, if I can call you to this, right under the word C, the letters CT in architectural, I'll call it a little bit of an architectural eyebrow there, right above the main entrance. And the architect has done a good job at creating some curvature, kind of break up the lines, kind of, again, in terms of the massing of the project, it draws your eyes up and lets you see and, again, break up the size and actually make it a pretty good-looking building. So if it was the flavor of the commission to not have us had that variance, it would not take away from having a 3-story building at all. That main roof line does comply, and in fact is a foot under, I think, the maximum, but instead some of the architectural flair and flow of the parapets is what is calling for the specific roof height variance. This next exhibit in front of you is the land use analysis, and your comprehensive plan calls for this area. Let me back up. This particular property, this subject property, was just recently annexed to the village of Westmont. It was annexed in, and because of the size of each of the underlying parcels, this property and the couple of properties to the east of us were brought in as the R1 zoning district. That's kind of a default of your village code. And I think it's been understood in talking and reviewing this in detail with staff that that's kind of a holding space for when it comes in until there actually is a development proposal. So what does that mean? Well, that means we shift to Plan to the second plan, which is look at the village comprehensive plan. The village comprehensive plan calls for mixed use along a large portion of the 63rd Street corridor. Of course, we know about its traffic counts. We know about the robust commercial district just to the west of us. We know about the redevelopment that's happening at the northwest corner of 63rd and Cass. We also know of some of the other more intensive attached single-family just east of this property that was all just recently annexed in the form of the townhome development. That's, I think, about 50% built right now. So in consideration of the comprehensive plan for the town that talks of mixed use, what we've seen and what the staff has identified in the staff report is that although there's been a trend of redevelopment in this corridor, there really hasn't been any mixed use. It's been, the real estate demands have been one type of use or another. So what I'm getting at is most of the other developments before us in this area along this corridor have been just commercially intensive or 100% commercial, not a lot of mixed. So what this property does to the neighborhood is it brings rooftops. Although this is a strictly residential project, the type of product fits well with the comprehensive plan in that the real estate market hasn't demanded mixed-use properties. But we are at a time right now where there is a demand for multifamily in this type of use. So in the end, we feel that this development is compatible with the neighbor and that it adds foot traffic and rooftops to help feed and the adjacent commercial district, number one. And then also it works as a nice buffer to some of the residential properties to the south, the little bit to the west of us along Ridge, and then to the north. And what do I mean by that? Well, by the zoning code that we're looking at, we are allowed a floor area ratio of 0.75. This project has a floor area ratio of about a third of that, or a little bit less than a half. I think we come in at 0.31 or 0.32 with a floor area ratio. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Our project will have about 40,000 square feet of impervious area, but our total site area is over 91,000 square feet. So what that means is we'll have more grass on this property than hard surface, or building or parking lot. So I'll say that again. We'll have 41,000 square feet of building and parking lot, and then we'll have about 50,000 square feet of green space, planting, landscaping, berms, setbacks, buffers, et cetera. So if I was to compare this use to a commercial use, of course, commercial uses are all on one level. They're kind of sprawled out. Essentially, this project has the high-end architectural, pleasing architectural accents, enhanced building materials, nice landscaping package, and extensive and large buffers that you otherwise perhaps would not see in a mixed-use development because there is no commercial component to it. So, for example, our rear setback is somewhere around 58 or 60 feet. That'll be coupled with landscaping and berming, and then there'll be a front yard, and of course the two side yard setbacks are well over 25 feet as well onto either side. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to point out a few more things. There was some talk in the staff report about site lighting. Although we haven't submitted a photometric plan, we do intend to comply with site lighting in accordance with your police department and your planning department requirements. That would mean zero lot line spillover, energy efficient fixtures in the parking lot, and the shoebox style where the lighting fixtures are pointed directly down. Your village has a quite restrictive lighting ordinance in terms of not allowing any glare or any spillover of lights to the adjacent property. Okay, and that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Artie to finish up on the next couple of slides. Thank you.
So next, I wanted to discuss how this proposal fits into the comprehensive plan of the village. We think it supports the goals of the village and the objectives stated in the comprehensive plan. And here I outline exactly how it does that. The luxury amenities and unique apartment designs and features really support the goals stated in the plan, where it's stated that one of the goals of the village is to encourage or incentivize multifamily unit types that offer amenities that make them competitive with single-family housing and attract professionals and families. This is exactly what we're appealing to. One of our primary competitors is single-family houses. People that come there, they can afford a single-family house, but they choose the rental living. So it goes directly to this point in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan also asks to provide a range of quality housing types that serve residents in all stages of life, including multifamily units of different sizes and types. We think that our proposal, again, does just that. It's a very unique type of an apartment. It's not the standard apartment that you see generally. The size and the type and the features go directly to this point as well. Another unique aspect of it is that the comprehensive plan calls to continue to enforce minimum multifamily property maintenance standards that raise the quality and long-term viability of multifamily housing. What we've seen in our experience is that when we come into a community, because of our high standard competition rather than price, the surrounding apartments are forced to raise their own property maintenance standards in order to compete. So in approving this project, it also indirectly forces the other properties to increase their maintenance standards. The comprehensive plan also asks to encourage the transition of rental properties to condominiums, which we directly do that by creating a condo conversion option that's built in, and when the market is ready for that, it would be applied. And finally, enhancing the economic viability, appearance, and function of the village's commercial corridors, including 63rd. One key interview noted additional residential density is needed to support downtown businesses. Since this was actually conducted, there's also been a very big commercial development on 63rd. So bringing additional residents that can afford to spend and live around these commercial corridors helps that economic viability. And finally, supporting the long-term stability and maintenance of multifamily development in the village so that it is an asset that provides quality housing choice for a variety of household types. In summary, we think that these are the features that directly go to the heart in supporting the goals and the objectives of the village as stated in the comprehensive plan. We think that our proposal offers a unique housing option to attract professionals and the recently retired. The large luxury units, lobby amenities, the lobby and the amenities create that unique type of housing that's called for in the comprehensive plan. The underground heated parking and the condo conversion option supported as well. And finally, ours has a minimal school district impact while achieving these benefits, simply because of the residents that it attracts. And it introduces future homeowners to Westmont through a luxury-focused appeal. These millennials that come will eventually buy a house. At least that's our opinion, and that's what the data shows. But we do that by introducing them, by bringing them to Westmont, and we do that through a luxury-focused appeal. And finally, it supports the economic vitality of 63rd and the community more generally. So with that, we'd like to open up to any questions that you may have.
Hardy, could you address item D, the zoning code variance request to increase the allowable density from 205,000 feet to 91,000 feet?
For land area per apartment?
Yes.
We think actually our proposal is not in line with typical apartment developments. It's actually, we are asking for much less than generally what apartments ask for. Because the size of the apartments is so large, typical apartment developments ask for much more demanding, they put much more demands on the villages. This is not in line. I would say it's actually very it's not as demanding, and it's not in line. It's actually much less. We're not asking to go against anything that's outside the norm of apartment developments. Yeah.
I'll turn it over, yeah. And just to add one more point or two on that, I think as it was summarized in the staff report, is that this is this type of zoning use is unique perhaps to 63rd Street, but at the same time it's compatible. And I think what the intention of this number is, and I'll ask Bruce perhaps to correct me if I'm wrong, is that this type of zoning elsewhere in the village is on a larger piece of land. Am I understanding that right, Bruce? The flavor of the question, that this this particular variance, what does it mean? Is that just the size of the property?
Is that the question?
It's the number of units, the size of the property required based on the number of units being built.
Okay.
So 200, under our code, 205,600 square feet are required for the number of units you're proposing, but the property has 91,000 and change.
All right, thanks for clarifying that, yeah. And we had talked with staff quite some time at our initial economic development meeting a few months ago that some of you were at. And we had felt, we've done these type of projects in many other communities, and it seemed like there was in your ordinance, there was a little bit of a disconnect for what we're providing, as it seems to be the trend of development in a lot of other towns and communities. And I can't speak for how or why the formula was established in Westmont years ago, but what I think the backbone of my presentation illustrated is we have ample green space. We have more grass on the site than we have building area. We are less than half of the allowed floor area ratio. We are not asking for any setback variances. In fact, we have enhanced setbacks and enhanced green space on the property. So though I can't answer specifically why we don't meet that requirement, I want to point out all of the other requirements that we do meet. And with the exception of that eyebrow, which is kind of an architectural feature that breaks up the horizontal massing of the entrance, I suppose that's the main variance, okay? But at the same time, we could have 50% or 100% more floor area ratio on the site. Well, what would that do to the density? I guess it would quadruple it at that point, but we're not asking for that. So my best
Part of
way
that
of,
may be too, I know the economic development community, when they approved this to go forward, the presentation was for 40 apartments, not 47. That would affect that in some way too, but not a great deal, I guess.
Sure. So, yeah, I think we might have played with the unit mix and the footprints. We didn't have an exact survey at the time, so we were able to work with the architect and kind of work out. We were able to provide the amenities like the fitness room and the lobbies and the elevators and the stairways. And when coming up with the mix of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, we just, that's the space we had.
Sure.
So,
Okay,
thank you.
All right.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, from that initial meeting, we didn't have the exact layouts, but
Oh, yeah, I'm not, I
sorry.
know it was
No, that was it.
still to be specified. But,
For us, that's it, unless you had any other questions.
okay, not at this point, and we thank you. I'd like to turn this over at this point to staff comments.
Okay, I'm Nalini Johnson, Village Planner. I just had a couple of questions, actually. I think they did summarize the staff report pretty well. I don't have any comments about any of that. The question I have has to do with the traffic study, and do you know when it might be completed?
We do not. We believe it perhaps would be another several weeks, or maybe it can be a condition of before the board meeting or something like that.
A couple of weeks? Okay. And then the other question had to do with my impression that the height variance was related to the garage, being, the grade being a little bit different. Can you talk about that a little bit? The underground garage?
Sure, yeah, the underground heated garage has an access point on the west facade of the building. And, yeah, I might not have an elevation, a digital elevation, but on the right-hand side of this image, there is a double wide, I believe 18 or 20 foot wide overhead door, electronically controlled, and that doorway is down at the lower level, so that would be about 9 or 10 feet below the first floor level. And so that would be exposed for the width of the driveway. I suspect there would be a series of like terraced retaining walls on both the left and the right side of the driveway as the automobiles would pull down into that level. Does that
So,
help?
yes, it does, thanks. And the other question would have to do with the second access point off of Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any conversation about modifying that a little bit, removing it? What other circulation pattern options
Sure.
do you have?
Yeah, one option regarding the southerly access point on Ridge, and this was suggested in the consulting engineer's letter, was right now, we like the straight in, straight out approach. There was a suggestion of could we shift the garage entrance further to the south? And that's something that we were going to wait on the results of the traffic analysis and kind of pull things together on that. But there was a recommendation to pull the secondary entrance on Ridge a little bit south. That would mean that it wouldn't be a straight shot down into the garage overhead door, but instead maybe a series of double 45-degree turns. That could alleviate some of those questions.
So there would be no elimination of that access point? Just a modification in
Yes.
terms of the distance to the other access
Yes.
point? Okay.
Did I see in the comments that there was a consideration to move the entrance to the underground garage to the east side of the building?
That's something we considered at the design development stage. We prefer this option, but you may be what we're speaking of is if the building was mirror image or flip-flopped around.
Well, I think there's concern with two accesses to Ridge Road, very near to each other and the intersection. That would be the reason for that, I
Yeah,
assume.
we like this layout, but we can work with staff and see what the traffic study comes up with. So we have something in our, as an option, and that would be it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do you have anything else?
When we're done with staff comments, then you open it up for
Yes,
the
sir.
public? All right. I'd just like to try to take a step back and provide some perspective for the commission. And Matt, I'm looking at you as the newest commissioner to try to help you and the public understand what's going on here and what you're being asked to do. So as was mentioned, these properties and a couple more to the east were annexed about a year ago. They're large lots with smaller, older, single-family homes on them. And as was just explained, the developer is proposing to purchase the two westernmost lots, tear down the two houses, and put up an apartment building. In order to do that, they would need to receive 5 separate approvals, and those are the items on your agenda tonight, and all of them would need to be approved. And those are, and I'll go through these briefly, and perhaps in order of most importance, would be an amendment to the comprehensive plan. So the village created a comprehensive plan several years ago, gives guidance for making decisions about proposals like this one, to give a framework for considering ideas and development proposals. This area in the comprehensive plan is designated for single-family development. So the first step would be, based on some of the arguments that the developer just made and your own thoughts, would this area make more sense for multifamily, as is being proposed? And if that's something that you think does make sense, then you would vote to amend the comprehensive plan to designate this area for multifamily development rather than single-family development as it's currently designated. Secondly, the property, as was explained earlier, when it was annexed, was assigned the default zoning designation of single-family. So it's not only identified in the comp plan as single-family use, but the zoning is for single-family. So if we think for a moment that this developer weren't here, and someone just bought those houses, tore them down, and wanted to build new houses, no approvals would be needed. The zoning would just allow a new single-family house on those lots. So a zoning map amendment would be required. Third, 2 variances would be needed, even if you suggest that the zoning be changed. One, and we started touching on this briefly, is the density. In our zoning rules, there are limits or requirements, I should say, for how much land is required for each unit in a multifamily building. And long story short, without getting into all the details and the calculations, for a building with 47 units, as is being proposed, our code requires over 200,000 square feet of land, about 5-acre site, for an apartment of that size. This site is about 90,000 square feet, so it's about 2 acres. So they would need, or they're requesting, I should say, a variance from their land requirement to be, they're asking to be required to, or be allowed to provide less land per unit than our ordinances require. That's the first variance. The second variance is a height variance. In the multifamily zoning district, Westmont's rules say that a building can be 35 feet tall. This is where we get into a bit of a technicality, and I think Nalini's question was trying to suss this out. From the top of the parking garage to the roof of the building is 35 feet, but the building itself is lifted up out of the ground so that the driveway down into the parking garage under the building has a less steep descent. So rather than pushing the building down into the ground and having a steep driveway into the underground parking, the building is popping up out of the ground a little bit. So the height above adjacent grade is the term we use, is more than 35 feet. So the building is 35 feet from the first floor to the top floor, but the overall height of the building is higher than that because it sits up out of the ground a little higher. So that's the second variance that's being requested. It's for a height variance. What am I on, 4? The fourth thing that needs to be approved is the site plan. This would be all of the details about the development of the site. The placement of the building, the placement of the detention pond, the placement of the parking lot, the access driveways, and also including the appearance of the building, the style, the design, the materials, et cetera. All of those details would be encompassed in the approval that you're being asked to provide for the site plan and landscape plan. That's the fourth item that's being requested of you for approval tonight. And then the fifth and final item that's being requested of you tonight is probably the most straightforward. The site currently consists of 2 separate platted lots. And we don't let someone plop down a large apartment building that would cross over that lot line in the middle of those 2 lots. So they need to eliminate that lot line in the middle by consolidating the 2 lots into one. And the way to do that is a plat of consolidation. So you were being asked to approve a plat of consolidation to take these 2 separate lots and merge them into one. So I just wanted to make sure that the commissioners were clear on what you're being asked to do, and that the viewing public is clear as well.
That's very helpful, Bruce. Thank you very much. Okay, now the public, before we get started, I would encourage, if there are small groups of neighbors that would like to have one person appointed as spokesperson, that would be helpful. Try to keep your comments to a few minutes, and as the evening goes on, let's not be too repetitive. If someone just said the same thing that you want to say, you can find a quick way to repeat that. So who would like to go first? Sir.
There you go.
Oh.
I live exactly across the street.
Hold on, sir.
Well, for anyone to speak has to be at the podium because there's a microphone there, sir. But can you go second? There's already a gentleman. And did you sign in out? Remember, everyone who testifies needs, why don't you go out and sign in? There's a sign-in sheet in the hallway, and you can go second. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andre Davik. I live at 205 Casey Court, which is approximately 2 blocks from the proposed site. I'm pretty opposed to this construction, and as you could see, I'm not the only one that's opposed to this. The area already has too much in the way of apartments. The south end of Westmont is pretty well saturated. We have these access apartments, which is located approximately at 59th and Cass, and it goes all the way to the ponds and to the park. We have the apartments at 65th and Cass, and there's quite a few of them there, which actually produces a traffic problem in itself. We have this new complex going up at 63rd and Cass, which is going to put a burden on the traffic at 63rd and Cass, which is only 2 blocks away from where this proposed apartments are going to be placed. And the traffic is something that I'm concerned with, and I'm sure everybody else will be, that wants to speak will be the same way. We don't need any more apartments in the area. And I don't know why the village wants to rezone this. I think Mr. Sylvester made more comments about the zoning that would indicate that this isn't necessary. We've got too many things on our zoning that should indicate that this shouldn't be done. And while this presentation was indicating that this would put a little impact on our school district, which is great, by the way. My daughter graduated from this area. She's a law professor now. But they were saying it would be about 3% impact on our schools. I don't know if that's going to be quite true. I don't know how they could determine this. They're saying that this development will be designed for professionals and retired people. How do they know that? And professional people have kids also, and this is going to put a burden on our school districts.
Okay, sir. Anything else?
I'm sure that other people have other comments that they would like to make, so I'll just keep it short because I think this is going to take a long time. Thank you very much.
Like I said, I live across the street from this. I agree with him. We don't need more apartments. In fact, 40 years.
Your name, sir?
Nick Rossi, R-O-S-S-I. I've been there 31 years, Gallagher and Henry Home. We have a nice little subdivision. We don't need this across the street. Those properties were zoned for high-class homes. They're already there across the street by State Farm.
And sir, I think you were here late. I need to swear you in. Do you swear that everything you say is the truth?
Well, of course
So
I
help you
will.
God.
Swear on the Bible.
Thank you. Proceed.
You have a Bible too? I'll pay on that. Okay. I keep my property very nice. I even cut along 63rd Street. That street is a menace. In the 30 years, the traffic is 3 times what it was. They're all going to Oak Brook. The lineup at 83 is 3 blocks long at the turning going north. This project will add more. We don't need rentals. You want to build high-class condos? Fine, where people got an investment. Rental people don't have investments. Now, they claim there's going to be young people. The young people aren't coming out here. They're downtown. They're not having children, and they're staying downtown, okay?
Okay, folks, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we can do without the applause we'll
We
keep this
don't, like I
moving.
said, we don't need any more rental. Those rentals east of me, west of Cass Avenue, were built with the same idea. Same with apartments down at 83rd, I-55. They were young people, moved in there, nice-looking building. Go down there now and see what they are. They're Section 8 property, they're run down, the police are down there every day, and that's gonna happen over there. Those people are not gonna keep the property up. Those people who are gonna build there are gonna be long gone, and we're gonna be stuck with the problems. We don't need that. Allow them to build only high-class, private homes running over $500,000 and get those kind of people in here. I lived in the city. I grew up in Austin District on the west side. It was loaded with apartments, people in apartments, owners. When they're desperate, will rent to anybody. Now, who's gonna manage those apartments? Are they gonna be here? Do those people live there? Do any of you board members live in Ashford? Ashford was in bad times. That's why Geller and Henry bought the 70 lots and built them nice-looking homes, because the original builder went bankrupt. So the economy is good now, but it may not be good in a year or two. I would advise you to listen to the people right here, the American way. Ask them to raise their hands, who wants it and who don't. If you see the people wanting it, go ahead and go along with it. That's the American way that I grew up with.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi.
Thank you.
Next. Have you been sworn in, sir?
Not yet, sir.
Maybe you can do it.
Do I have to sign in here too, as long as those?
Is there anyone else who intends to speak and has not been sworn in? I signed in already. Will you please, if you've been sworn in? Yes. Okay. You plan to, will you tell the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Good.
My name is Wael Zaki. I'm the owner of 1204 Ridge Road, which is across the street from the building, subject of the discussion today. Thank you for bringing the points you did bring, was amazing points. However, it's more details about, you know, the building and all the codes, and which is great. Today, I'm not going to repeat what they said, but I have some concerns here. I've been in my house, and I'm a pharmacist, and also I'm doing real estate on the side. I know the house across the street needs renovation, needs to be taken down and brought up in a different way. No offense, but it needs a lot of work. As an investor myself, I look at this house and I said, oh, you know what? That could be a really great multi-unit. And I can put a lot of money in that, convince the bank to do it, and I get a lot of tenants in here. I'm going to make a fortune of it. And my wife is here outside. I had the discussion with her like 5 years ago. But I never done this. Do you know why? I don't want to change the demographics of the area. Because I want to raise my kids here. And I don't want to ruin the district we have, the school district. Now, let me give you some points about my experience with my tenants and my rental experience, because I have multi-units, not multi-unit buildings, but I always have townhouses. Pay attention, I'm saying townhouses. I have like 7 or 8 of these, and the difference in the level we're talking about from apartment to a townhouse is huge. You're renting a townhouse for $1,800, $1,900. You know the kind of tenant you're looking at, right? Versus apartment, and no offense, I live in apartment before in Woodridge, and then I came down here to this community now. So I know the huge difference between that. I know where you pay $600, $700 to get an apartment, what kind of tenants you're looking at, the pool that you're gonna have, the turnover rate with these tenants, and the problem in community you're gonna have after this. Now, how many eviction cases you're gonna have? How many times you're gonna have to bring the police down there? How many times you have protection orders for families just having issues there? How many troubles you're gonna get out of 47 units? That's another thing. So if you really want to do it, I'm not against it as an idea. I told you I wanted to think about it to do it, but I never done it. But I'm against the idea of changing the demographics of the community. We are in a place where we chose to raise our kids in a certain way and have a community that we love and we want to live in. But if you choose, you change it. So you truthfully say yes. Want to change it, want to bring that community to a different shape, that's fine. That can work. But you're going to know what you're doing. And I trust you because the decision you're going to make going to shape our life for future in this area. That's not the only point. Second point I'd say, people here are amazingly presented their points, very convincing, great. There's no guarantee for anyone, either they're gonna manage it themselves or have it for a professional management taking care of it, or different owner doing it. There's no guarantee for us as a village to take over this process to make sure the safety and the quality of the people they're gonna select to live in there. There is no way, when I'm listing my house for rent, I get about 30 to 40 applicants to me. I'm not gonna take a long time. 30 to 40 applicants. Imagine, what kind of rules you have over there? I can pick whatever I want. Some landlords, they go over the process of background checks and credits and running interviews. Some of them just hand the keys and get the money and get out of there. We
Okay,
talking
sir.
about,
Do you have another point you'd like to make?
yes, sir.
Good.
Beside the traffic that been brought, I think the street capacity is not enough to allow that high traffic of that number of apartments or the buildings. And then my concern, which I am 100% sure that all of you concerned about, is the school district change. It's going to lower the ratings. It's going to take it to a terrible level. I and everyone here know that this is not going to be good for anybody.
Okay, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Drew Mitchell. I'm a landowner in Westmont. And I'm actually also in the development business. So I'm sitting here and I'm listening to these various comments, and it's fascinating and curious because professionally this is what I do for a living. So I realize what I'm about to say may not be very popular, but I'm very familiar with the type of tenant that goes in luxury developments. They're typically younger, millennials, they don't have kids. When they have kids, they move into a home. When they're older, which is really probably who's gonna end up living here, it's probably many of you in this room. By the time that beautiful building is done, I bet you're gonna be doing cartwheels. That is gorgeous architecture. It's sensational construction. I'm in the business. What you've designed is really, really beautiful. That development at Cass and Ridge, those are really tricky properties to develop. You're on a really busy street. You're a block east of 63rd and Cass. I mean, that's not an easy place to develop. We've got tough-looking homes there. I heard from one of the constituents. I actually commend you guys for being in here in front of a tough crowd like this. The other thing is, on traffic, you've got, 47 units? Think about when you leave your home. Twice a day? So the amount of traffic generated on 47 units is maybe a high... Sorry, guys, it's my turn. So 47 units, and you're in and out. Maybe you go to the grocery store on Saturday. I can't wait for your traffic generation study because it's going to be nothing. There's going to be no traffic generated, very, very little. So guys, hey, listen, I'm just being respectful.
Let him talk.
So guys, all that I'm saying is I would encourage, Westmont is seeing some development. It's really exciting. I see that there's a single-family residential neighborhood to the north. And, what I will tell you as a guy who's been developing for a long time, you're not going to feel an impact. But I recognize this is challenging, and I hope nobody looks for me in the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hey, excuse me.
Guys, you're going to be watching this from a neighboring room, if we can't keep this down. We've got to, the only people who can talk are at the podium and the microphone. Thank you.
And to clarify that, this commission really values all of your comments, and that's why you're here, because you're concerned. But if someone has an opposite point of view, you have to give them the respect they deserve to express that without interrupting them. Otherwise, the chairman can cancel this public hearing, and we're all going to be back here until everyone has proper decorum. All right, so please give them the respect. Clapping, I know you want to clap when someone says something you like, but it just prolongs the night. So let everyone speak and we'll get through this and we can listen more attentively. Thanks.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Sonia Damjanovic-Stoga. I live at 6524 South Ridge Road. I've been in front of the Building Zoning Commission for numerous things, as the young man over there knows, and I've seen the neighborhood change, but there are some things that should not be changed. We were forced annexed, and it was made into R1A zoning and R1 zoning. It wasn't a default. We have multi-million-dollar homes, and the lots are big because it was supposed to be an estate area. We were not supposed to be hodgepodge together with little houses that are crammed as apartment buildings or anything else. Your stuff is beautiful, but maybe it belongs west of Cass Avenue, not in our neighborhood. And as far as the traffic is concerned, the traffic is horrendous because the kids from the school get out. Moms and dads drive their kids, and it's more than 2 times a day that people are out in their cars and such, and that they have to actually manipulate through large amounts of traffic for long periods of time, such as 63rd Street and Cass Avenue. They've changed Ridge Road into Cass Avenue 2, and we've had the police officers there trying to catch the speeders, the rice burners, everything else, because we don't have in many places sidewalks because it was deemed that it was supposed to be an upper end estate area. By you putting this conglomerate of housing there at 44.5% out of 100, that's not even half of what the requirement is for land. And what about the flooding then? You've got the Jehovah's Witnesses that turn into a big island, correct? So you have that. You have the pond across the street, the legit pond that overflows onto 63rd Street. You have the traffic for people trying to cut through Westmont, and then you have all the problems that we have at the ponds because of the whatever type of activities that go on. We have a lot of police there. Our neighborhood is a quiet neighborhood. And I'm sure that to have an egress and everything that's on Cass Avenue, it's not acceptable because we have problems now without having a big apartment building there. So, and I feel sorry for the people that live on 64th Street that would have to butt up to this monstrosity. What kind of privacy are they going to have? What kind of land value are we going to have? And we pay really nice taxes for where we live. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wayne Driscoll. I'm a resident of the Ashford subdivision. When I heard about this plan, I had some concerns. First, the intersection of Ridge and 63rd is a major connector between the northwest section of Marker School District 60 and the Westview Hills Middle School, and it is used in addition to the parents driving kids to school by a large number of kids that walk or ride their bicycle. So the additional traffic of 45 houses on the pedestrian traffic, has that been considered? Second, the area along 63rd Street has a lot of flooding in addition to the areas east of there, west of there by the, just west of Williams at the Eagle Creek subdivision and Muddy Waters Park. 63rd Street, those have flooded enough that 63rd Street is a lake all the way across 63rd Street a number of times. Even with the retention pond, removing that amount of area seems, putting that much construction in, and this is an area that has a lot of trees and is somewhat submerged. It's 4 to 6 feet below street grade in some of those areas. Finally, some questions on the filing. There's mention on page 4 that approximately 3,100 square feet of the first floor adjacent to Quincy would be dedicated to leasable space for anticipated residents. This is, or restaurant rather. This is obviously a reference to a different project, which makes me question the staff time put into this. Second, there's discussion of the traffic study and the student pedestrian, was that considered? And finally, on the floor area ratio, the use of 28,392 square feet to get the 0.31 ratio doesn't make sense considering that the definition of the FAR is the gross floor area, which in the documentation is listed as 55,689 square feet, which comes up to a FAR of 0.61, not 0.31. Why the discrepancy, and why was the correct definition not used?
Stand by. Staff, would you like to address that?
I believe the definition for FAR includes habitable space as opposed to including the garage space. So I think that's where the discrepancy.
It says 3 stories at 18,000 a story. So 28,000 at 3 times 18 is not even close. So that's what I'm
And again, there's some space on those floors that do not have habitability, so,
But it's floor area, not floor usable area.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Sir?
Yeah, my name is Zhigang Wang. I live in 263 65th Street. When I buy the house, why I buy house there? Because this area is a quiet, safety area. For my house, my lot is small, just half acre. Before they build by the lot is 1 acre or 1.5 acre. Then they slot the lot to build 3 or 2 houses. So I welcome the build a single house in our community, not build apartment. You can slot the land to a small lot, build a single house. You can also make big money. So I don't like build so many apartment, because when I buy the house, I searching the neighborhood. So I have kids. Safety is the first. So for apartment, the people move in, move out. You don't know who is who. For the neighborhood, we know each other. So I think the major for me is safety. So don't destroy our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Sue
evening.
Michaels. I live at 217 Casey. And I wanted to come here and discuss the 2013 comprehensive plan. The A&E builders mentioned this a couple times in the presentation, and I wanted to identify a couple issues that us as a community, or you guys, actually put out there and were concerned about. One of the things they identified 5 issues confronting the village of Westmont. One of them was traffic, a few of them was lack of green space, and another one was the village budget and the tax base. My concern really is the lack of green space as well as the traffic. Traffic has been mentioned. In my area, there are parks, but they're in other villages or across 63rd Street, so it's kind of hard for my kids to play and find those things. Another thing they mentioned in this outreach or this project was they listed the 3 most important issues in the village. What are the 3 most important issues that were discussed so far? And one of them was limiting rental housing units. In Westmont, if you do a fast Google search, you will discover that there are 13 rental sites that pop up. If you do one for Darien, there are 3. If you do one for Willowbrook, there's 5 or less. I think we have plenty of rentals. Our area is a nice family, safe, quiet area. My kids bike up and down Ridge. When it's not a school day, obviously, but when it's on the weekends and that kind of thing, it's nice and it's quiet. You add 45, 50 more cars, it makes a bigger safety concern, and my kids are a little more limited. So I think from a safety point of view, as well as just from your initiation, from what you guys have talked about, you need to follow your plan. Look for green spaces. Limit the rentals. Maybe make that area into a nice park with a nice walking thing and a thing in the middle so that kids can play there. The school can use it as a running area. There's lots of different variable things we can do there that can actually help the houses that are near there. You have houses that generate a lot of money, that are $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 houses, and they're being built right now, so that land is valuable. Utilize it. Make a park. Do something good that we all can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. And as a reminder, when you're speaking, please address the board, not the audience. Good
Hi,
evening,
my
sir.
name is Bill Davy. I live in the area for the last 25 years or so. I came from the inner city, Southside Irish kid, worked my way up to build a beautiful home over here, and I am very deeply concerned what this will do to my property value. I have 2 children that both graduated from Hinsdale Central High School. What effect is this going to have on the school district? We just went through a referendum to increase our taxes on the school district. Now if I'm going to put another, say, 30 kids in there, whatever the number is, it's going to affect me again. So the property value goes down. And what advantage is it for the village of Westmont to put this 34-foot, whatever number it is, up in the air? The area is not built for that. It's all single-family residents, hardworking people, paying in that area pretty high taxes. You know, where's the advantage to the village and to the people? You know, I don't see it, and I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong that way. But I look and say that you're now going to look at probably 60, maybe 70 cars. Does this building allow 70 cars underground parking? Or are we going to have parking on the street also? They don't answer that question.
Yes, they did. That was addressed. It's essentially 50-50.
I find it hard to believe because in today's world, most people, even if it's a single family, single one-bedroom apartment, there's going to be at least one car. Because you can't go anywhere living out here without a car. Now, if you go to 2 bedrooms, most likely you're going to have 2 cars. So what does that do? That gives you 97, close to 100 parking. Do you park that? I don't know that they've addressed that issue. And then you hear another issue comes out is, well, you know, maybe downstream we'll make it condos. Are they bailing out already when they say maybe? You know, if you're committing to putting this kind of a building up, you should be there for a long-term commitment. I haven't heard a word about what the prices are going to be. You know, somebody said something about Section 8. That's happened. You know, builders don't originally build buildings for that, but you go west of Cass Avenue for a long time. There's been a lot of Section 8 living. And why should I pay for somebody else who's not carried their own weight? I thank you for your time, and please consider what I had to say to you.
Thanks, sir. Go Marines.
Good evening. My name is Steve St. John. I live at 1212 Ridge, which would be, our driveway, I guess, would be right across the street from one of the entrances or exits from this proposed site. I've only lived in the area for less than a year, lived in Clarendon Hills, grew up in Hinsdale, lived in Atlanta for a while where I worked with a developer and a builder, and we built homes similar to yours. Nothing with a 24-car garage, though. Was that in Illinois, by the way? I'm just very curious. So I was sitting here and just thinking that my expectation when I moved into the neighborhood, although I haven't been there as long as the rest of these folks, was probably not any different than theirs was. I had an idea of what I was buying, what I was getting, and what I was getting into, and that was the expectation that I believed would last for a long time. So I know when you started, you talked about building an 18,000 square foot home with 24 garages and garage spaces, and it was built by the same fellow that would be building this building. And I guess my question would be, if we picked up the phone right now and called the people that lived in that house and said, hey, listen, we're going to build an apartment building.
He's got it.
Yeah, now please address the board, sir.
We're going to build an apartment building with 47 units in it right next door to you, and we're starting tomorrow. Don't worry, it's going to be built by the same guy that built your house. Are you okay with that? My guess is the answer would be over my dead body, okay? I wouldn't blame them. Because if I invested, whether it was a $300,000 house or a $20 million house, I went in with an expectation that I was getting what I was getting. My second point is this. There's an expectation that's been said a couple of times that they have an idea of who they hope that they will rent these units to. Nobody's got that crystal ball. We don't have it for the economy, and we certainly don't have it for who's going to rent there. But what I can say is it's probably not a very different from the research that I've done, probably not a very different conversation than many of you folks probably heard a few years ago with regard to Charleston Court. That builder came in with some ideas of what they expected to do. You rejected their idea wisely. The village overrode you and decided this would be a great idea, a really great idea. They're still for sale. They're still for rent. They've had to downgrade to who they would accept in there because they had to try and figure out a way to get rid of him, and the guy claimed bankruptcy. So there is not a clear definition of what would go in there. And what would go in there, it's an apartment complex. It will violate safety. It will violate the walking space of kids to schools and things like that, and that's a given. And a given that I don't think we should expect to take, especially folks that have lived through a referendum that's changed the school zone, and now we're going to have something else that's going to destroy property value. And I think my third point, if I can remember what the hell I said here, is that I think to what several people have said, this area just doesn't need another apartment complex. I mean, it looks like, as you said, the developer, it looks like a beautiful building, okay? And I'm sure there's a place for it. But the round peg square hole concept, we need to step back, all of us, for a minute and say, this just doesn't make sense here. It doesn't make sense for these folks. It just doesn't make sense for this location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening, Zone Commission. My name is Abhishek Agarwal. This is my wife, Megha. We just bought the house in Westmont 2 months back. Compared to the age group, we are younger. Yeah.
And this apartment building that they're proposing, it's right
in front of
our
us, we
house.
are at 1208 Ridge Road, the second house in the south of 63rd.
We are his neighbors, actually.
We are the neighbors of Steve. So I have some different points. And the reason I say that is reinstating that we have good rental community count. Some lady gave the count. I don't have to reiterate that. I came to Westmont. When I came to Illinois, I chose Westmont. Reason is, this is a great mix of community. We have rental apartment. I lived at Access Apartments for 9 years, right? Great community park in the front. You know, young professionals come there, they move, but they don't care about the community. Why? When I lived there, last year, there were 5 police incidents in my Access Apartments. You can get the record from Westmont police. People don't care. As everybody stated here, this is a single family place. We want to grow a house. I want to live here. I want to be 75 years old when I go. But please don't change the demographic. This is not meant for our Westmont. I believe in Westmont, and I want to be here. If you want to build apartments, there's a ton of spaces north and west, right? Find a place where you can have apartment building, but don't destroy our single family homes. This is a great community. This is a great set of people you see here, right? And everybody coming here, they don't want to see crime. You know, the apartments don't have safety. We bought house, we don't have kids. We plan to have kids. Do you want to see our kids next to an apartment where there's a police activity and kids have trauma? Think about this. This is a single family place for people who believe in community. We look out each other. I met Steve. I have my another neighbor who was here, forgot his name. He's right here. He's a pharmacist. We look out for each other, right? We take care, hey, your kids are coming back from school, my wife will be at home, she'll look out for you. You believe in community, let's build our community. But find places where the apartment fits well. Don't try to zone. If this is, somebody said here, if you have to do 5 zoning variations, probably you're not finding the right place at the right. I'm not opposed to Westmont development. Every time I see a construction on, right now, I take a train every day to work. I see the construction, I feel happy. Why? I see our village to grow. I want more taxes, more businesses, but this is the place where you want to have community. Downers Grove just built, if you went to Downers Grove downtown, they built another apartment building on Maple and Main Street. Why? Because that's the place. Younger people want to stay close to downtown, not in a single family apartment. So all the millennials, like me or maybe younger than me, won't come to this place. So think about the millennial aspect of this. We don't need a hotel next to our single family homes. You all are family people, right? I can see on your faces with rings on the hand. You don't want an apartment building with crime showing up every day. I had a guy who, and last thing I would say, the crime goes up if the apartment comes up because people there don't care about community. And school district, I chose, you know why I chose that area? Because I can send it to Hinsdale Central or Hinsdale South. They're the top 4 schools.
And I want to add to this point, considering the fact that this is Hinsdale Central, I really don't think that's not going to minimally impact
Address
the
us,
schools.
please.
Please, yeah.
It will definitely impact the school district because it is Hinsdale Central. You have to understand that. And people will be like, okay, $600, I'll pay for it and I'll send my kids to Hinsdale Central. But then what's the point of us buying a house over there? Because you do understand that, right? Like, they won't care about this village. They won't care about that area. They are just concerned about, oh, yeah, we'll just send our kids to Hinsdale Central. But we will be living there for the rest of our lives, raising our kids, raising our families.
And privacy will be another concern everybody has stated. So I would say that.
Another fact is, their buildings will be at a height, and it's right in front of our house. We won't be able to even open the blinds probably because there'll be so much activity going on in the apartments. Actually, a few points. I seriously feel there's a bluff about prices rising in the houses. Because
Say that again.
I seriously feel they are bluffing about the prices rise of the houses. You know, they said that there was a hike wherever they made the apartments before, 21% to 23%, the cost of the house. I seriously feel this is a bluff because in United States, other than California or Seattle, I have not heard that the prices rise so high of any house. Of any area. And this is Westmont Village. We know what, my husband has been living here for past 10 years. I have been living here for past 6 years. I'm actually from Canada. I know the difference between United States and Canada, how the prices rise. Another thing is the parking problem that they are saying to us. We don't want so many cars in our area because it's definitely, I agree with my husband, it's a quiet
Ridge
place.
Road is not, it's a single lane, right? Both sides. It's a very narrow street. Getting 2 cars out is a problem. Adding almost 100 new cars won't make it better, right? It'll make it worse for us.
We've addressed traffic impact.
Yeah, so please.
Yeah, the only thing is, please don't do it because we decided to live in Westmont. We moved from rental to the house in Westmont itself.
And we believe in Westmont.
We believe on you, don't do this to
Let's
us.
not send a wrong message to the younger generation. If people are saying they want to have.
If you have to reconsider zoning this area again, why to do it at the first place? Because you already thought about it and you zoned it in a right way. I mean, that's our only points. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next.
Good evening. My name is Mary Wentland. I live on 64th Street. I very much oppose this apartment building for many, many other reasons that you've already heard. South Westmont is flooded with apartment buildings. There's a perfectly good area of land at 65th and Cass. Join in with all the other apartments and do like the gentleman says, put up a beautiful building and let the other buildings around them come up to their standards. It's an option. I've lived on 64th Street practically my entire life, and I have watched this area change from when it was, everybody was on an acre of land, small little houses, DuPage County, to slowly Westmont picking up a plot here and there until everybody's surrounded, and now the whole place is Westmont. That's not a bad thing, because with that came the division where everybody builds on a half an acre. We have nice, big, beautiful houses built there. And there's families, there's kids, there's you know, you see them all over the place, people pushing strollers. It's a community. And I think when you think about all these kids in this area and what all their building has done for, or, you know, the building of these big homes to the village of Westmont, where are these kids supposed to play? You know, everybody's come to Westmont, you've issued their building permits, they've built their houses, and maybe it's time that the village of Westmont gives back to all these people who have built this big community here. Because shy of crossing 5 lanes of 63rd Street and going to the little park in Ashford, there's nowhere for kids to play. Do everybody in this area, including the homeowners on 63rd Street who are trying to sell their property, do everybody a favor and turn it into a community park. You have water, sewer, electricity. You have all the makings for a pavilion with bathrooms and drinking fountains. You probably have room for a soccer field. It's on 63rd Street, I get it. So is the skate park. You fence it in, you do some nice landscaping, and you fill in all the gaps of the sidewalks. Now you have families walking to a park. You have the older people who live in this area walking their grandchildren to a park, and everybody wins. Thank you.
We thank you. Please. Could I have a show of hands on how many more people intend to testify? Okay. You, sir. Your turn.
My name is Mark Woods, and I live at 217 Ashford Lane, which is literally across the street from this complex. We have a problem on Ashford Lane because Ashford Lane, the south bend of it, it's kind of a weird U-shaped street, but the south part where we live, on the east-west part, is below the grade of 63rd Street. We've learned to deal with it. There's about 6 or 7 or 8, maybe 10 houses all on 63rd Street. Our backyards are higher than our houses are. This apartment complex would put more water onto our yards. We all have soggy backyards anyway. The other thing is that when we moved into the area in 1987, when it was built, we bought the house new. We understood that across the street was residential, because we found that out because we were dealing with a fencing thing on 63rd Street. We put up our own fence along 63rd Street for privacy and because keep some of the traffic noise out. Now, the rest of the village, when they have a residential area being developed next to a commercial area, require the builders to put up a fence between the residential area and the commercial area. We weren't provided that because it was residential across the street, despite the fact that it's a 4-lane road. We deal with the traffic noise to a certain extent, but the extra light and the extra traffic noise in my backyard, and people actually, 3rd floor, they could watch us sitting on the patio having a barbecue. I mean, I don't mind that too terribly much if I lived in an urban area, but I live in a nice, single-family development. I know my neighbors. I love my neighbors. They're great neighbors. And I think that one of the things that the other people said here was that would be destroyed if you had a group of strangers that were basically transients with no vested interest in the area. Condominium development would be less objectionable to us than an apartment development for obvious reasons. They have less vested in the community. But the other thing is the traffic, if they allow on 63rd Street, that's a block from a place where there's accidents regularly on 63rd and Ridge Road, and there's a traffic light there because people speed along 63rd Street. So we don't want the extra traffic. We don't want the transient nature of apartment complex, the extra building. And also on Ridge Road, It's basically going from one residential area to another residential area with minimal traffic, and the lights are there for the kids to cross during school, and also to get access to 63rd Street safely. But if you increase the traffic and put the way that the traffic pattern is on that apartment building, you're going to have increased access to 63rd Street on that. Are they going to be able to allow turn left there into a left turn lane? That's less than 200 feet away. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to us because we live in a single family development on both sides of 63rd Street.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Franken40, and I live in the area there. I don't know if we need to do a traffic study because I've driven at that stoplight every morning for 15 years, and school buses have to turn onto Ridge Road there, and it's impossible now for a school bus to turn in there if there's more than 2 cars there. And as of right now, with just a little bit of traffic, in the mornings it takes me 2 to 3 lights to make a left-hand turn out of that light. So if we put another 60 cars there in the morning, because they're all professionals that are going to be working there, how long is it going to take me now to make a left-hand turn at that light? And the school buses come in, and if anyone ever parks on the street there, which we're allowed to park in the street there, a school bus can't come in, and that happens every morning. Or if it's garbage morning, the garbage truck is parked there. How are we going to have cars coming in and out of there with a garbage truck, a school buses? I mean, you have 8 school buses every morning, I think, turning on there. And another thing is, that area we've been there, kids used to walk up and down that street. My kids grew up there, rode their bike there. The reason you don't see kids playing outside anymore is because there's too much traffic already. Our kids can't play in the driveway and run across the street because cars fly up and down Ridge Road as it is. So if you want to know why kids don't walk to school anymore, I wouldn't let my kids walk. I don't let my kids play outside in the front anymore. We used to be able to do that 15 years ago without 90 cars coming through there. So if you want to put another 90 cars coming through there, it's all this projection, this income, that income, whatever's going to be there, there's going to be cars coming in there. We can't handle 5 more cars. So if they think they're going to have more than 5 cars there, first of all, the people that live there are going to be upset every morning. How are they going to get out? Because we're already lined up at that light in the morning. So all those people coming out of the garage, that's the only way they could get out. How are they going to get out? And so once they're in there, who's going to want to live in there when people start hearing you can't get out of there in the morning? It's impossible to make a turn to get out of there. So if you put that exit on Ridge Road there, how are they going to get in and out of there? It doesn't look like more than 3 cars in that garage, and that garage is going to be open and closed and open and closed. I mean, how are they going to get out there? You don't need to do a traffic study. I've done it every morning for 15 years, and it takes me 3 lights now to make a left-hand turn there. And then second of all, I'm sure they already have all these plans. They already know what their projected cost is probably to build this. So what is the rent? Has anyone said what the rent's going to be there?
They can develop.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about the rent there, and they talk about high-end professionals. I mean, my son lived with us. He just moved out. Millennials want somewhere. They move downtown where there's a train, and you're building 2 buildings right down there that kids could walk the train. You're doing that already. There's no advantage for a single person to live there, that you can't walk to anything. It's too much traffic. So even if they did want, I mean, there's no dog park, there's no walk. We can't even walk dogs anymore because cars fly up and down there. So people that live there, they're probably going to have pets. Where are they going to walk? You can't walk on the street there. You can't cross the street there. We can't park there. I mean, already as it is, if we park there, we get tickets at night because we can't park in the middle of the night there. If you have 90 people living there and 10 of them have a friend come over, that's 10 more cars because they, hopefully they have friends that come and visit them. They don't just live there by themselves. So I just want to know, I mean, it's not a projection. There's too much traffic now. So putting more, we don't need to do studies. It's over traffic now, so we don't need to do more traffic. 5 more cars is going to be way too much. So.
Well spoken. Thank you. Please, next.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Augustine. I live on Richmond Avenue. And to address what he's saying about the traffic, I know where they're going to go. They're going to make a left out of there, and they're going to come ripping down 64th Street and then right up Richmond. And we'll be backlogged there, which is right in front of my house where my children play and where we walk and go to school. So I don't need to reiterate all the things that everybody has said. You all know all of this. I've lived there for over 15 years. We've been through this with this board before. You guys have always been very reasonable and supportive of all of the residents who live there and the fact that this is a single-family area. So I would just ask you to please follow the comprehensive plan that they are ignoring, which basically says that you're going to keep this as a single-family area for single-family homes. I mean, quite frankly, it's a lovely building, but it belongs downtown. It just, to stuff it into that spot, it just smacks of greed, quite frankly.
Thank you.
My name is Ken Neiman, live at 208 64th Street, so my backyard is going to butt right up to this property. I just wanted to kind of call out just a couple of things. I'm not going to go into traffic, everything else that's been discussed enough already, but just kind of make references back to the comprehensive plan. When the community provided feedback, 80% of the community said we should not build additional rental properties within the village, that we have enough of it. That's on there's references to that on page 8, 9, and 23 of the comprehensive plan. Also, I did some research looking at 2017 census data. The home ownership rate from 2017 for Westmont is 51.9%, which is below the national average of 63.8% and lags well behind Darien, Downers Grove. Same thing happened with property values. Westmont is behind both Darien and Downers Grove when it comes to property values. Adding an additional rental property on this is only going to decrease the property values on Ridge, 64th, 65th, Ashford, and there's probably many other neighborhoods that I'm not listing. So I would just like the board to really consider, listen to the feedback that was gathered when the comprehensive plan was created, the feedback that everybody provided tonight, and vote no against this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I make another statement?
Come to the podium.
Progress is really great, and I appreciate that type of thing. But what good does it do the village of Westmont or the people like myself, homeowners, to put this apartment complex in? Can anybody tell me a real advantage to it? You know, to me, this apartment is beautiful. I looked at the pictures, great. But it belongs on Cass Avenue on Quincy, right here, downtown. People can get on the train, that kind of, where you're putting it now doesn't make sense to me. And what do I know? I'm just a resident thing, but I hopefully, when you guys think about it, think about the residents who live around that area. And I live pretty close to it, not right on that street, but I live pretty damn close to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Just want to add one point, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Just one point, I'm sorry. Well, one point we don't pay attention to as market value in Westmont, we have this subdivision, that area, that they pay high taxes, the house value is high. Now, once this project will be already done, I think the market value will go down drastically. Now, think about that. When the prices go down, it's less taxes. What the village going to get out of it? So it's not going to only affect that subdivision. I think it will affect the whole market. Guess what? If you're going to agree today to say yes to this project, how many house owners will put their houses out for sale because they don't want to live with that? And what happens when you crowd the market with too many of these houses out? They're going to run away before the project comes out to the light, so the house value can go down. They're going to try to save as much as they can at the moment of loss can happen, and then will bring the whole market in Westmont down. Means that the taxes for the village itself will go down a lot. The property tax will go a lot less than what you see right now. And it's not going to go up anymore because the project will be out and it will affect that for good. There's no way to bring it up again. So please don't lose this value. We live on these communities and we pay that much taxes. We pay average $12,000 to $19,000 in some properties. We don't want to, we pay because we want to live there. That's the point. I mean, the village is not going to benefit anything of that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I
Thank you,
took more.
Sir, could you stay there a second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman? If people return to the microphone, we have someone listens to the recording and takes minutes. So if you could just repeat your name if you're coming back to the
Oh,
microphone.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my name is Wa'il Zaki. I live in 1204 Ridge Road.
And you signed in.
I did, yes.
Mr. St. John?
Yes, hi, thank you. I had one other little note, and at the risk of prolonging this thing any further than we need to, it was basically a point that Bruce had made when we started. And if I understood what you were saying right, the group is basically saying, hey, we'd like you to say it's okay to break 5 laws. And those 5 laws, as people have suggested as it relates to the comprehensive plan, were put in place for a reason. And the biggest part of that reason was to protect what's already there, to preserve that environment as it is. And those rules, those laws, were established because they were consistent with what was there and would protect what's there. And to ask someone to break one law, sometimes, I want to move my fence 5 inches, can sometimes meet with a whole lot of issues. But we're not talking about one issue of a 3-inch move of a fence. We're talking about 5 laws to be broken in order for this to be okay. So anyway, thank you.
It's clear. Okay. We're going to turn, oh, yes, Artie, please come. We wanted you to address that rents. People were asking about
Yeah.
rents.
So I just took some notes to briefly address some of the comments that were made.
Sure.
So, one thing is, to answer some of the questions that were posed, we are the owners and we will be the managers of the property. So when we said that statement in the beginning that we really see our incentives as aligned, concerns that were brought up are completely understandable, and we don't want those either. So the main one was, how do we know who will come to this department? And we have a couple methods of knowing this. So the first obvious one is our experience from similar developments. We didn't show developments that are unlike this. We showed one that was very similar. From that experience, we know who it attracts, and also the types of incomes that they have. Second, we do background checks that include income, credit score, criminal history, eviction history. Third is, as one of the gentlemen actually pointed out, I think it was Mr. Elzeki, the other filter is rental rates. His townhomes, I think, were going somewhere in the 1,500 range. These will be between $1,700 and $2,200 per month. That is a very good filter to know who is coming here. Next is the reason you don't see apartment buildings building underground heated parking garage is because it makes no financial sense to do so. But the reason we build underground heated parking garages is because we cater to a specific niche of resident in the luxury market. We use it doesn't make financial sense to do so, but underground heated parking garages are another filter to who comes to this building. It's the people that want to have the luxury of not going outside, have nice cars that they want to protect from weather. So that's, for us, is not financially incentivized, but rather it filters the people that come to our building. Also, the parking, we do exceed parking requirements. The house that was 18,000 square feet, it was questioned whether they would want an apartment building there. Actually, behind it is an apartment building. The school impact, how do we know the school impact? One primary one is the unit mix. It's primarily 1-bedroom apartments. Because they attract those younger professionals and the recently retired who don't have kids. The other thing, I'll let our engineer talk more about this, but given the concerns that were brought up about traffic on Ridge, we will cut one of the accesses to Ridge Road. After this meeting, it was a concern that was brought up often. Flooding, our engineer will talk more to it, but we do improve the flooding situation. And also the safety, we are adding sidewalks where there's kids there, so I think it improves the safety of the area as well. With that, Yeah.
I have one question while you're there regarding, because the point has been made by other people,
Yeah.
that the demographic of the person that you want to rent to seems to be more the young people who want to live on transient-oriented development by the tracks. You're 2 miles out where everyone's going to have a car. Does that, with your previous construction projects, does that fit this demographic of
Actually-
these young people having cars as opposed to getting on the train?
It fits almost exactly. It's close by a train track, but it's not exactly right next to it. Because we don't appeal to that exact demographic who works in the city, there's young people that work in the suburbs as well, and those are the people that we are targeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. In talking about the existing zoning, one of our requests is to rezone. It was by default that the property was annexed and brought into the R1 district because there really was no other development plan at that point. I think that's understood. Frankly, given the traffic counts and the comprehensive plan does not call long-term for that to be single-family estate homes along 63rd Street. So it's a mixed-use type comprehensive plan corridor, and it's the residential component that's been lacking from all the other commercial development over the years. So looking at the corridor as a whole, this brings the residential component. The second point I wanted to make is we could look at this parcel from a transitional zoning standpoint. Just like it wouldn't be compatible for single-family home estate, it probably wouldn't be compatible for a park site setting, again, because of the traffic count and because of the commercial corridor we're at. There was one thing I want to add about how it would add to the tax base. Not only would it bring up the value of this property substantially due to the value of the project, which would contribute to the village and the park district and the school district with minimum negative impact due to the amount of one-bedroom apartments. But at the same time, what hasn't been analyzed or what hasn't been talked about is the contribution to the general fund in terms of the retail tax base, the restaurant tax, the sales tax revenue. If we're bringing 47 new units, residential units, so close to the commercial district, you can guarantee that these folks are shopping in town and they're frequenting the bars and other locations around the community, which promotes to that tax base, which the benefit is to the community in terms of the tax base improvements. The traffic count and analysis will be studied. We'll be glad to work with staff. We have some ideas on minimizing the Ridge Road access point. We like two. We could perhaps shift one to the south or combine the two into one. We also spoke about perhaps even, flipping the building around. Again, we can work with staff if that is the flavor and the results of what the traffic study comes to mind. Or comes to bear. With respect to pedestrian safety, we are adding sidewalks on both the 63rd Street frontage and the Ridge frontage. And finally, I just want to touch on some of the things this property could be. Again, we already know the village has an interest in maximizing the 63rd Street corridor. Given the fact that we are well below the floor area ratio, and given the fact that there's more green space on this property than there is impervious, I think that's really an exclamation point for how this is a perfect fit from a transitional zoning standpoint. If this was to be a commercial development, I believe that it would be much closer to all of the residents in all four directions. And frankly, because it is a vertical building, mind you, with enhanced architecture, brick and stone materials, nice facade, architectural intrigue, and all the high-end luxury components together with our upgraded landscape and reforestation of the property, I think it's a win-win both to the community from a tax base standpoint and also for increased enhanced buffers on all four sides of the property. So, thank you.
Excellent.
I'm sorry, I would like to come again.
I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed.
Okay. There are some points, right, what he said. I'll just take like 1 minute.
Well, Come on up.
Can we write for any other comments?
Yes, you can always email the village board directly, or better yet, email the Community Development Department, and they will accumulate all of your emails and provide them to the village board. Either option works.
Repeat your name, please.
Yeah, Megha, 1208. He said that will be the owners and manager. For how long? Access has been changed 3 times ever since my husband has been living over there. First it was Fountain Stone Crust, then Access, then Market was something before that.
Okay, next point.
Next, the sales tax he was talking about, how many shops Westmont has anyways to shop around? I mean, yeah, there are food places, but there are no shopping centers. It's all in West Oakbrook Terrace, right? And the prices of the houses that he's talking about, it'll increase. Has he done that from recession to now? I mean, 21 to 23%, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. Sir, the public testimony is closed. Yeah. I'm sorry. Do you have something to say that no one else has said? Yes, absolutely. Please, come on up. Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I
Okay.
have. First of all, my name is Bill Krolak, Krolak, and I live 2 lots from the building proposal on 63rd Street, 533 63rd Street. It was brought to our attention that a couple of our neighbors were selling, which are the 2 lots that are in question. And we were approached by the realtor finding out that if the 5 1/4 acres that were involved in this project would be available, and we kind of agreed that if the price is right, I've been there 40 years. If the price was right, and we would go along, and we went through the realtor. She did a lot of footwork, a lot of finding out what an area of that size would go for, and it was quite a bit of money. And we said, well, you know, if you find somebody, well, we got somebody that wants to develop it, a couple of people. So he says, well, I never signed up for the realtor because I was waiting to find out what was happening. Well, they have a beautiful presentation on what they want to build, and there was fellas here were the initial developers to come in on this. So when they came down to find out what we wanted to sell our properties for, they said, no way. I mean, you're out of the ballpark. The 2 properties that they did buy, they had the people backed up against the wall because the one wanted to sell a property for years. The other one had an estate situation. And my neighbor, it was his mother's property. He's been holding on to it to get a price for it. It's a tear down. Mine is not. It's an older home. But that being said, to be told what your property is worth, livable building, and then say your tear down is going to be half the price. I mean, I said, I don't care. I don't have to move. But the problem that I'm having is that we did not have any competition to come in to try to develop this piece of property. It was like open door, shut door, come in. We're the ones that want to buy it. Nobody came around to find out if there was going to be any expansion of single homes, multiple homes, townhomes, and we never had any propositions on that. So the fact that I'm worried about, once this property is developed, and we always discussed a little bit, the owners of us, that we'd have an egress coming in off a ridge, which is the big thing about this development that they have. Now that it would be passed by the commission, we'll be landlocked to 3 acres. I got 2 half acres and then 2 1 acres. On the other side of the east side is a condo that was supposed to be developed 2-phase. It never developed. So that in itself is a kick in the butt there. So with this project being developed and what it is, who would, and if people wanted single dwellings, single-family dwellings, who would want to build in those 3 acres next to this massive apartment building? So at this time, I am not against progress. I understand where the people are coming from that live there. They don't want to see a massive building, but if the price is right, I would sell. But to have an opportunity to see what would be more acceptable in the way of 2-story condos or townhomes that would represent the area, and have the opportunity to use Ridge as an on and off area, not to make it too complicated. So that's about all I got.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now, that's it. We're going to turn to the commissioners now. And let's start with Commissioner Van Buren. What say you?
I'm going to first address, and actually, my greatest concern is the zoning on this property. This is the gateway to a premier housing development in Westmont, and so I think we should be very selective about what we do in changing the zoning. I fully understand that 63rd Street is not an ideal single-family development area as we know, but I would much prefer to see attached single-family than, which would also allow for greater density, but and it would be more of a transition into your community. So I have nothing against renters. I'm a landlord. I have been for 50 years, and I love them. But Westmont happens to be the highest percentage of rentals in the entire area. I have the owner-occupied, rental-occupied populations percentage. For example, Hinsdale, 11.52%. Lyle, really high, 33.10. That's the closest to us. Downers Grove, 18%. Westmont, 43% of our residents are renters. And so we currently have 1 and possibly 2 transit-oriented developments going on here along the tracks. And I don't object to that, but I do object to the changing of this to R5. And I'll let the rest of my fellow commissioners speak to the development itself. I'm sure these people are honest in telling us what they're going to do. I'm sure they've done their homework on the demographics, what kind of renter they're going to get. That's not, I have no problem with that at all. But I really do have with the concept of a rental unit being placed in that particular spot.
Commissioner Thomas.
When I first saw the project and drove out to look at it, and it just seemed, and that it was a rental, and that it just seemed far away from the train station, and what we've always been, told. And also, now the comprehensive plan, while it's not ironclad, it's not real old either. It's just been redone 2013, 14, and that's what they want there is the single family, and that's the way it was, put out there. Now, that's not ironclad. It it's not like it can never be changed or anything like that, but it has, some thought has to go into when you change it or massage it or whatever. And I have a problem with like you're saying, right across the street, they have these large homes, right across the street from Ridge, and it's going, all of a sudden, this is going to be there. Whether it's beautiful and high or not beautiful and high, it's a high density, and and my first reaction was it doesn't fit. And I can be changed. My mind can be changed. And nothing is rock solid here. But I certainly understand your concerns. And it's up to them to convince you and us, well, us first, then you, but let them present their case, and then we'll make our dishes, what we would prefer, and take that to the trustees. We don't vote. We tell the commission, the trustees what we think. Trustees vote. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sharp.
Yeah, this one's pretty tough for me. The zoning, I agree, it seems is the most sensitive thing here, and it legitimately catches maybe all of us by surprise because it's not what is currently zoned and it's not what the comprehensive plan seems to indicate for this area. However, from a planning standpoint, it is extremely close in proximity to a very up and coming commercial district. It's very close to a commercial district, and so a denser multifamily development, a good argument can be made and has been made for it. And that's my conflict. And I don't have a firm opinion yet. I want to hear more from fellow commissioners. But I understand the delicate nature of it and the reason that it has caught people kind of in a sour way. It is, for what it is, though, I do feel like it is well positioned on the site. It's facing 63rd, which is the busy corridor. Its side profile that's on Ridge is no wider than a typical house. So I think from a massing standpoint, it actually works, and it fits in its context as well as an apartment building can fit. So I give props to the designers for that, and I think it's as well laid out as it can, with the exception of these multiple entrances on Ridge, which we talked about a lot, and which the developer has already offered to make design accommodations to reduce one of those, so it's now only half as bad conceptually. So I have a couple questions for the developers. And then I'll see where I'm at. So the commissioners get packets which have some initial reviews from the village and the village's associate engineers. So a couple of my questions are about those reviews. There was landscaping review done, and at one point there were missing trees. Have the trees all been addressed and provided for?
They have, we do have two reviewers on that one, a landscape architect and a forester, the village forester, and both of those now show 40 feet spacing or 35 to 40 feet spacing between trees.
Okay. The variances, there's two variances. There's open space or density variance, and then there's a height variance. I think that these two variances kind of just go along with the nature of the development. It's a multifamily development, and so it's going to be more dense than a typical R5 zone. And I have heard, it's been said many times in the past that Westmont doesn't have built-in high density in our zoning code, so it's not anticipated for necessarily. I think that the variances aside, if you look at the actual lot, I think it lays out well, and it's not overly dense, and there is enough open space, in my opinion, so I'm not concerned about the density variance or the height variance myself. It is unusual not to have a traffic study already done at this point, just in my experience on the board. Usually that's already done by the time it gets to planning and zoning. I also, though, concur that 45 additional cars will probably not create a large impact just based on other larger developments that I've seen and the traffic impact studies.
Please.
So you have to keep in mind on 63rd Street, there's thousands of cars that go by in an hour, and you're talking about adding 45 cars to that in a rush hour. So we're talking about seconds at a light, I think, for Rich, but it was unusual not to see that already here. So there's outstanding questions. I do agree about traffic. Can I ask a couple questions about the site plan itself? There's a little sidewalk cut south of the building on Ridge, and it leads to a little half circle with a rectangle. Can someone tell me what that is? It's just a bench.
Sure. The part of the open, and these are not final plans by any means, they're preliminary, but it was a architect's rendering to display some type of passive recreation to observe the pond and the open space in the back. So that's perhaps poured concrete or brick paver or stamped material with a nice size bench, low maintenance, that could, for residents and the community, in that it's tied into the sidewalk system on Ridge Road.
Okay. My second question to the development team is the renderings. You guys showed one rendering or two in the presentation, but I want to confirm that the east and west sides of this development would have the same materials as the north primary side. It was kind of unclear because we didn't get a good picture of the side elevations.
Oops. Yes.
It's all brick and stone.
Yeah. Yeah, same materials on all four sides. They'll be different. If you look at the front elevation here, there's different architectural features to break up the horizontal lines, and that'll be consistent, as you can see on the right-hand side of the page. As we wrap the corner, there'll be a change in materials, but it will be 100% maintenance-free and all brick and stone-like materials.
Okay. What do you guys already have options in your pocket that you plan on using to address this Ridge Road ingress and egress and reducing that? What would the thought be?
Well, we like this straight in and straight out of the garage door. One option is a 90-degree turn. You know, it's a small scale. When you blow it up, we'd have to meet the auto turn analysis requirements for turning a passenger car or a pickup truck, but we have two options, or perhaps three, as is, with the building as oriented. We could come out of the garage and turn left and go south, and then make a right to kind of lengthen that ramp up to separate the two access points, which would perhaps alleviate some of the left turn stacking thoughts that I've heard about on Ridge. The other is to do what I just described, but turn it to the north. And that if we were to eliminate an access point, we would come out of that garage door and turn an immediate right, and then tie into our off-street parking lot. And then there, at that point, residents would have the choice to turn left, but perhaps that also sends more traffic through our project site for eastbound traffic, and then they exit the access on 63rd Street to go east. So
Okay.
we have a couple of options there. We can work with staff.
Okay, thank you very much.
But the plan is on that, for that parking lot in front, that's right turn only onto 63rd Street.
We're gonna put, we have not submitted to DOT yet.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
It's up to them.
I have a couple questions for staff now. It was mentioned in the packet that there is a lack of open space. And then there was addressed, maybe these plans with the shaded gray came later.
Correct.
Do we typically allow the detention basin to be included as part of, is this usable open area, or is this just open area? If this was water, it would count as open area.
Good question. That provision of the zoning ordinance through past staff reviews has never really come up. So I think there's an open question as to what usable means. This is designed as a dry bottom detention. and arguably it's usable open space, either for recreation or detention it's being used for something other than impervious surface. So we don't have a definition, and based on the amount of overall green space and accessible usable areas, staff was comfortable saying that code provision was met and did not need a variance.
Okay. It will require, I'm assuming, the detention basin will have some kind of native planting that will be unmowed or basically unmowed, and so there will not be easy.
We meet it.
access
The
to play.
requirement is 11,000 square feet and some change, and the shaded area is, I think, about 15,000. And there's ample green space on the site. If I remember right, we have about 50,000 square feet of green space on the site. You know, a percentage of that is our detention pond, but there's side slopes to the pond, and one could argue there's a berm around the pond, and that perhaps is walkable, you know, because the berm is 10 feet wide or so near the top. And so...
Oh, there's like a flat.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So graphically, I put in a placeholder for this 11 to 15,000 square foot area as a representation, but as part of my testimony, we have more green space on the site than we do impervious. And then to address one other comment you made, if we were on the fence of, does the bottom of the pond that has native plantings in it qualify? Well, I could state that just paper napkin numbers, we could probably, in lieu of a natural grassy side slope on our pond, if we thought for a moment about a vertical landscape wall, we could probably create a flat area, but then we want to back up, and do we really want a 3 or 4 foot retaining wall just to satisfy that requirement when it's maybe more naturalized with the trees and the plantings to just have a rolling
Well, it'll look
terrain.
better that way. I'm just saying, I mean, I wouldn't personally live in this kind of development, so I have a built-in bias, as we all do, but there wouldn't be enough space there for me, to like walk my dog or do those kind of things, but not every person that's gonna
I
live here is
envision
gonna
there
have a
could be
dog.
like a mulch trail around the entire perimeter of the detention pond. You know, nothing paved at all to keep our impervious in control, but you could have a you know, potential dog walking opportunity all the way around the pond, all around the site, because there are sidewalks on the west side and the north side. There's ample green space on the east side, so you could have natural passive recreation for the residents. That could be worked out with staff at the time of our final landscape plan submittal.
Yeah, thank you. There has been repeated statements that this is intended towards young professionals or retirees that are maybe downsizing into something more easily maintained, and that makes sense. I also, there was another gentleman, a developer, that spoke second, I think, or third, that suggested maybe this was going to be mostly retirees, which makes even more sense for this development because they're not close to the train station. But I do feel like this development, either any way you slice it, would be better in the downtown area because retirees presumably would want to use, at some point, be comfortable using public transportation more than driving also. And so having this kind of development here, I know there has not ever been framed as a TOD, this project. I'm just saying it's in a strange spot for high-end apartment, in my opinion. So I'm going to wait and hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Scales.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for considering Westmont for your development activities. I have just a couple of quick questions. In looking through the plan sets that you provided, which I think admittedly are preliminary plan sets, it talks about the size of the units. I just noticed a discrepancy, and I could be wrong, but in just kind of dividing out the math, it does add up with the unit mix. But in your letter to the staff and the commission, it says you've got 1-bedroom units at 924 square feet and 2-bedroom units, 1,200 to 1,300 square feet. But in the plan set, in the breakout here in the corner, it breaks down the units, and again, maybe I'm reading this wrong, at one bedroom, 110,000 overall total square feet, with 3,800 per square feet, or square feet per dwelling. And then two bedrooms of 95,000 overall square feet at 5,300 square feet per dwelling. Is it just the plan set section?
Do you want me to? Yeah, I think that was staff's attempt at breaking down what amount of land would be associated with each unit.
Okay, because they sound fantastic at that size.
Yeah, those.
That's truly luxury.
Yeah, that's a luxury house, certainly. So no, your initial numbers of plus or minus 924 for a one-bedroom, and we are proposing 29 one-bedroom, and then we're around 925, and then we're proposing 18 two-bedrooms at about 1,250 square feet apiece.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. You mentioned the price points, and thank you for that. Do you have any cost estimates that you can share, just the size of the investment you're planning to make here?
It's substantial. We want to be an integral part of Westmont, and we hope that that size of an investment actually has a positive impact. But as to the exact number, I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing because it's not yet known exactly. There's a lot of unknown variables. We just removed one access, so there's a lot of things that are still changing.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And then I guess the last question I had was related to that access, and it sounds like letter F of this approval tonight is related to the site plan, and it seemed as though there are some changes to be made, perhaps based on access, and then I do concur without a traffic study. I think it'd be prudent to maybe have a look at that and understand how that impacts these ingress and egress points, but that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lavoy.
I have quite a few questions.
Good.
For the developer. To start out with reiterating the comments related to the package really not being complete. You kind of knew coming in that there's going to be a lot of questions on traffic. We don't have a traffic report. So my comments are based on my own expertise and what I see and how I can apply my expertise to the plan and try to make a judgment. As far as traffic goes, I think that, you have to think, leaving this property, number one, and then coming back to the property at the end of the day, and probably some other traffic midday, depending upon the type of residence, especially when you are looking at elderly people as your demographic to actually occupy the building. But when you leave, I look at the different corridors. There's a lot of traffic. When you leave in the morning, it goes towards 83 and goes eastbound on 63rd. However, if there are people that live in this building that want to go to the southwest, they're going to go down Ridge. And they're going to go down Ridge, I think it's to 56th Street, if I'm not mistaken, where the next traffic light is to the west on Cass Avenue. So that would be like a shortcut and get around the intersection of Cass and 63rd, where it's pretty difficult during rush hour. A lot of stacking goes on in all directions at that intersection. So I would think that if I were smart and I lived there and I needed to go to 75th Street to work, I would go south on Ridge. It's as simple as that. I would not go left on 63rd Street, go westbound to the Cass Avenue light and wait 3 times before the light changes, wait 3 cycles. So I make these assessments based on what I see and not the traffic analysis, which I think is somewhat unfair. I really think that, this type of development really required one, and I would like to see one because I really value digging into the technical aspect of the project. A couple other comments related to traffic. One of the things I think about as you're leaving or as you're leaving the building and you're parked underneath the building, how are your headlights facing? You're going up ramp and you're shining your headlights across the street into a single-family house. So that's really not desirable. I also see on the site plan that I'm not really in favor of the location of the dumpster because it's literally a stone throw to the next house to the east. If you want to pull that up on the site plan, I'll show it to you. And I would like to, by the way, talk about this plan too. If you could put that up on the screen?
The one with the shaded area?
Here, you can come get it. We can put it up on the screen. If you put that on there, I think Nalini can get that up on the screen. So that was in my package, and that's I think that's, can you rotate it so we can read it? So very lightly, I have a question for the engineer, and that is that, tell me how this is gonna work from a drainage perspective. We have the detention pond in the rear of the building, and when I go out and look at that property, that, the overland flow, or the flow runs to the northeast, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you would have to handle the bypass flow in some manner. How would you accomplish that? In other words, the water that's coming up ridge along the right-of-way normally would flow to the northeast, and your development has now been built up and is going to impede or block that flow. I'm kind of concerned about that.
Well, first of all, as a professional engineer, I can testify that we will meet all ordinances of the state and the county and of the village. So we have ample green space on this property with very generous side yard setbacks to be able to honor the requirements of the code. There will be overland flow routes provided. This plan right now is just conceptual preliminary engineering. I don't have all the overland flow calcs figured out. But certainly, there's major and minor systems. You know, there'll be storm sewer underground, connecting the parking lot and the downspouts to the pond. We'll have to honor the bypass flow. I have to sign the surface water drainage certificate as an Illinois engineer that states that I'm not causing any negative damages to the neighborhood. And in fact, with being able to provide VCBMP storage and 100-year detention, we will 100% satisfy all those requirements.
I understand. By the way, I'm also a PE, and
Sure, I know you, Chris.
I'm pretty much well-versed at the stormwater, but I just think that your pond and your building blocks the flow of the normal overland flow route from the bottom corner to the top right. Because of the grade on the building, and I just want to know where that water's going to go. And just like my comments with the traffic report, you know, I really can't see, based on what you've given us, if that's going to work or not. I don't know. Part of our job is to evaluate the site plan, and we don't have proper access. We don't have, you know, these things figured out, because I can tell you that low point, I went to the site and I studied it, I looked at it, and I said, look, this is something that you're building a pond across the normal overland flow route. So I don't want to create a problem down there that I know you can either bypass it by either a swale or a storm sewer or whatever, but I just don't see it. So when we're trying to approve a
And
site
certainly
plan,
what you have in your packet is only conceptual and preliminary engineering.
understood, but that's really critical to know where that's going to be. Okay, next question is on the east side of your building. That plan that I have up on the screen, how is that graded from the building to the lot line?
It slopes off probably around 4 feet or so.
Okay, well, it looks like on those contours, I'm counting probably six contours, 6 feet drop between the building and the lot line. Is that contained within your detention pond, that surface area?
Certainly. It will have to be based on county
So
drainage
that
law.
water's gonna make it somehow through the pond?
Yeah, there'll probably be a combination of a swale and a series of beehive catch basins along the lot line.
Okay, the information that I have in my packet doesn't indicate that. It looks like the pond elevation is gonna be higher than that lot line, because the flow runs from the southwest to the northeast. So it looks like on the plan that I'm looking at is that there's a significant area of green space that flows undetained. onto the property to the east.
The county stormwater code has provisions for restricted and unrestricted flow. So, of course, if there are small areas of green space that are pervious, of course, we could perhaps over-restrict to provide more water storage in lieu of trading for unrestricted bypass flow and still be able to sign the surface water drainage certificate.
Well, I just don't see how that's going to work on the plan that I have in front of me tonight. Just
I understand
wanna
how you
point that
feel.
out.
This is a preliminary plan. but
Understood.
I'll be happy to meet with you and share with you our final plan.
Okay. One of the things that I've had experience with along 63rd Street corridor is that there's several properties and several plats that were done many, many years ago. On your plat, you make reference, of course, to the original recorded plat, and that was recorded in DuPage County several years ago. It's here somewhere, but it was recorded many years ago. But on 63rd Street, there were several deed restrictions applied many, many years ago, long before any of us ever even thought about this kind of stuff, that prohibited any other development other than R1, other than single-family residential. And I would like to have that plat looked at to see, as far as title goes, if there is a title restriction, because that would be on the recorded plat, which is not shown here. The number is shown in your packet, and the document number is here, but it'd be nice to have staff take a look at that document to see if there are any. I know there are 3 plats along 63rd Street that have that deed restriction. So I'm kind of concerned about that too, that, you know, deed restrictions go with the land. They just don't go away. They're basically there forever. You just can't make a statement like that go away on a plat. So I don't see title information here. Probably have a boatload of comments on the remainder because of the easements. Doesn't look like a 5-foot wide easement is going to be big enough to get any kind of equipment down. You have that on the plat. Like to see that changed. There's just not enough room there to make access for public works. It looks like I'll say some positive comments too. I think the building, as Mr. Mitchell stated, is an outstanding building. I really like the building a lot. I don't like where it's at. I don't like the position of it. I don't like the blocking of the flow. I don't like the traffic. I don't like anything else about it, but I do like the building. Well, I'm just calling a spade, if you understand my comments, that I look at it, you know, very objectively, and I can look at this building and I can tell that it's a quality building. But I also know when I look at the, you know, as we fit this building into the piece of the puzzle in Westmont, it doesn't work for me. And it doesn't work for me from a couple standpoints. When you look at the existing map of the comp plan, we have R1 surrounding us on this plan, okay? We have R1 surrounding, we have C1, then we have an R4 PD plat that was built. Was that done before we annexed or not?
I assume it was after annexation?
That was after annexation. Well, if we went and we did a comp plan review, I can tell you for sure, in my opinion, that there's no way that any one of those R1 properties is going to get zoned R5. Just because it's a transitional zone, and yes, it's on 63rd Street, but it's something that I just don't see that happening. So I'm really not in agreement with number 1, your number 1 comprehensive plan amendment. I'm really not in favor of the density issue either with D. I don't think we have ever in Westmont, have we? Would you please correct me, Wallace, if I'm not mistaken, gone 100% on a variation of density?
Not to my knowledge.
Yes, I think the village has. I think every single apartment, townhome, or condo development over the years practically has sought a density variance because the village's density requirements are extremely strict, and many developers have pointed out they're not in line with surrounding communities.
Mm-hmm.
So density variances have been quite common. You think of them more downtown TOD type study. where you don't have a lot of land to work with. There's a little more land on 63rd to work with, but still, for those projects outside of the downtown area, I think everyone has requested a density variance.
Variations, but not to this degree.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is over
the exact-
100%. And I don't think we've ever done over 100%. So I'm looking at precedents here and saying that I don't agree with the variation just because we've never done this before. I've never, this is a classic, spot zoning thing. I just don't want to see it because it's not conducive to the neighborhood. There's a lot of impacts here, and I'm just not in favor of the comp plan revision, the zoning revision. I'm not in favor of the site plan because there's several critical issues even tonight that we're saying that major components of the site plan are half-baked and we don't see the solution. I don't see the solution. If it gets reworked, maybe, but I don't think I'm too far off. The 35-foot building height, I really don't mind because, single-family homes are about 35 feet. But the site plan is not acceptable to me anyway. That's my opinion. I don't think this development belongs on 63rd Street. I just don't. I mean, I hate to say it so bluntly, but I know there's gonna be impacts, and I know that somehow, money makes engineering work, but I know that trapping water is an issue. When it comes in front of us, I don't want to make an assumption that staff's going to make it all right, because it's not all right what I see.
I do know that the city's stormwater consultant and Public Works have reviewed the plan, and we've addressed all their comments.
Okay, but still preliminary. You're telling me that they've approved the plan, but you're also telling me that the detail's not there for a solution. So that tells me that weighs no weight for me at all. To have another consultant look at that plan and tell me that we were approved because it doesn't work. The plan does not work. I want to approve a plan that works. That plan doesn't work because I've just proven it tonight. I can't see the bypass flow. I've got undetained water going off the site that's impacting a single-family property. And it's not that far away. The house is literally right to the east of that slope. So they're gonna look out their window and they're gonna see a slide slope up 5 to 6 feet. And that water's a direct runoff. Is that roof discharge gonna go on the east side of the building? Yes or no?
One final comment, I'll meet all drainage law on this project.
Okay. I have no other questions.
All right, thank you.
For the rest of the commission, just understand that, there's a lot of moving pieces on this, and your process allows us to be here to talk about zoning and comprehensive plan without being at the final plat stage. So the reason I don't have all the answers worked out, and staff and your consultant knows this, is that we only need preliminary engineering to get to this.
Certainly, we understand that, but we would have expected a traffic impact study. And I would like to ask the board if everyone's prepared to vote on this issue without having seen a traffic impact study.
I'm ready.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thank you. Any comments I have at this time? I tried to listen very carefully to the public, and in your comments, I heard people's concerns about traffic impact on the schools, the demographics difference between homeowners and renters, tenant turnover rates, apartments being inappropriate for an upper-end estate neighborhood, privacy issues, potential noise and potential safety issues, effect on property values, people's expectations of living in an area and seeing dramatic change. And as I think someone commented, a round peg in a square hole, and I couldn't disagree with that. I think it's impractical to think that the village could purchase this area and turn it into a park. I mean, one, the money is not there. Two, a park right along 63rd Street doesn't make sense, so. Water concerns addressed, but I don't think that's as much of a concern as you addressed that. Again, the transient nature of the population who are renters. I would say regarding the comprehensive plan and apartments that we address it and say we want density, we want apartments when they're transit oriented, downtown Westmont, because that's what really helps. The population comes, then the businesses thrive. 2 miles out, not so much. Even your location at nearness to 63rd and Cass is still not downtown density. I think whatever decision we make tonight and recommend to the village board, my real concern is that 20 years from now, and more than that, that people will look at that area and for other decisions that this board has made and say, that was the right decision, it was the right thing to do. The more I've listened to all this tonight, the word that kept coming up to me and making sense is townhouses. Townhouses along that corridor in the future looks to me like that's what it should be. And this building, I don't see it fitting. And so that's where I'm coming from. Again, I'm not as concerned about the height variances and these density definitions, things, but changing the comprehensive plan, amending it, is a serious issue, and it's not to be taken lightly, because if we amend the comprehensive plan for this, which I think some people even commented is effectively spot zoning, then the next time it's easier to amend it. And then what's a comprehensive plan if it can be amended for every project? So, I see this entire area is surrounded by R1, and this traffic impact is a very real issue. I'd have a hard time supporting this. So, would we have any other discussion among the board members' comments?
Can I make one clarification,
Absolutely,
maybe one
please.
question? Gentleman, I think, questioned the FAR calculations, and in looking at the definition, it's not restricted just to usable floor space. It actually is measured from exterior wall to exterior wall. It's a little broader than I think we initially, staff looked at it. Nevertheless, being that it's 0.75, it seems that this project is well within the required FAR and no variance would be required. I don't have an opinion or a vote on this matter. I'm not expressing any opinion, but would point out that I think every other apartment project that's come in recent years has sought a parking variance. This is one of the few, if any, that has not sought a parking variance, because typically the parking calculation requirements are criticized by developers as being too strict. There's a developer that's complying with that. Just looking at the zoning along 63rd Street, which is R1 or R1A, and Wally or staff or anyone, have there been new single-family homes built, redevelopment along 63rd Street in this general area?
I think there, with like it, in the last 15 years maybe, going back on the north side of 63rd, there are 3 homes that would be called in either Clarendon Hills or it would be Willowbrook.
Just east of Clarendon Hills Road?
Yeah, just west of
Clarendon west, rather, I'm sorry.
Clarendon Hills Road. There are a few, but none within, I'm sure, the last decade.
Yeah. Just one of the factors you look at in a rezoning is, what's the likelihood of property getting redeveloped under the current zoning. Question for the developer. The photo you showed of another multifamily project and said this one would be similar. Was that your Bensonville project?
Yes.
Was that one ever actually constructed?
Yes.
And did you sell that project?
Yes.
Okay. But this one, your testimony is this is not just purely investment to flip?
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion under item A, comprehensive plan amendment request to redesignate approximately 2.10 acres from single-family detached residential to multi-family residential.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by
Van Buren?
Van Buren, second by
Thomas?
Thomas. Questions, comments on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren votes no. Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
No.
Commissioner Lavoy?
Yes.
And Chairman Carmichael?
No. Item B, zoning map amendment request to rezone.
Mr. Chair, can I interrupt?
Certainly.
The way that was worded, that motion was worded, would you go back and reread that, please?
We don't have a written transcript, but I think all motions are in the affirmative, and the motion was to approve the comprehensive plan amendment.
The motion was to approve, and we have several votes to deny, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Item B, zoning map amendment request to rezone approximately 2.10 acres from R1 single-family detached residence zoning district to R5 general residence zoning district. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Thomas?
Second, Sharp.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
No.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
And Commissioner Van Buren votes no. Chairman Carmichael?
No. Item C, zoning code variance request to increase the maximum allowable height in the R5 general residence district from 35 feet to 41 feet. A motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion Van Buren, second. Sharp. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
I have a question. Is this generally related to this district, correct? This type of zoning classification? Not specific to this project, but generally to this?
So we already voted on B. This is item C for the
Correct.
variance.
Right.
And this is a variance for this specific project.
Okay.
It's not a zoning text amendment that
Okay.
would apply to all properties in the R4. It's just this project.
Got it. Okay, thank you. No.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren votes no. And Chairman Carmichael?
No. Item D, zoning code variance request to increase the allowable density of the multifamily residential development by reducing the required land area from a minimum of 205,600 square feet to 91,572 square feet. Motion?
So moved. Thomas?
Second, Lavoy.
Discussion? Questions on the issue? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scales? Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren votes no. Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Chairman Carmichael?
No. Item E, preliminary plat of consolidation. Have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second? I'm sorry. Do I have a second? Sharp. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren votes no. Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
No.
And Chairman Carmichael?
No. Item F, site and landscaping plan approval. Motion?
So moved, Sharp.
Sharp?
Second, Lavoy.
Lavoy. Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren's no. Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
No.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
And Chairman Mark Carmichael.
No. Well, gentlemen, there you have it, a lot of no's. Again, this is a recommending body, but it looks to me like for you to go forward as village board, you got a lot of work to do. And I thank you for your presentation. Like I say, I agree that it's a beautiful building, and I think it's in the wrong place.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I believe that the way I heard Commissioner Van Buren speak on the first petition, I misunderstood, and my vote is no.
Changed his first vote. He misunderstood you on the first one. His vote is actually no. Okay, at this point, I want to change items on the agenda with apologies to IGE.
Oh, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is in progress, folks. Please. With apologies to IGE, I'm going to take the last item on the agenda and move Holiday up so you can, yeah, you know, because I don't know why. We're just going to do it. Item number 4.
Mr. Chairman, could we adjourn for 10 minutes? 5?
Okay, item number 4.
Stand by. A request to, for a 5-minute, we'll start again at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
We're the dumping.
Well, I'm going to stretch then. Oof. Now, tell me about this thing that we're doing with holidays. No.
I remember a long time, 50 years ago.
Where's this document came out for? Okay, we're back in session. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sharp? Here. Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Thomas? Here. Commissioner Scales?
Here.
Commissioner Lavoy?
Here.
And Chairman Carmichael.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, item 2, PZC 19028, request from Community Development Department regarding properties located along East Quincy. For the following, we're going to table this gentleman until next month, and that doesn't require a vote, it's just...
No, it does. It was
does?
published for a public hearing. So what we need to do is open the public hearing and then have a motion to continue it until the February PZC meeting.
Public hearing is open, and may I have a motion to continue?
So moved, Thomas. Second, Lavoy.
Okay,
And that's until February.
until February 12th.
Van Buren?
Discussion on the,
No, okay.
Van Buren, Lavoy, discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Motion passes. Next item. We're going to move up to item 4, request from Holiday Properties regarding preliminary plat is not necessary, and so
It'll just be withdrawn.
we'll withdraw this as an issue.
And to clarify, that item was previously approved as a preliminary plat, recommended by this body, went up to the village board, and they're moving towards final plat. So while some engineering aspects are changing, nothing's changing about the lot lines, et cetera. So reapproval of the preliminary plat's not necessary.
And
So
we
we can
thank you
change
for
it
your
to
attendance
final,
tonight,
vote
sir,
on it.
and your input.
Yeah, thanks for throwing yourself under the bus there, Joe.
Sorry, guys. I don't envy the challenges. Happy New Year.
Next item, Planning and Zoning Commission 19027, a request from Community Development Department regarding the following. A, to create definitions and land use regulations for massage therapy establishments, medical clinics, and health clubs in business and commercial districts. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, we presented this item at the last meeting, and I think we're just coming back for an actual vote. So I'd like to ask if there are any questions that I can address, any outstanding issues that need to be looked at. Otherwise, you know, we could be ready for a vote.
So on these original additional recommendations, you said the main changes recommended to be made in the near future to address Illinois law would be the removal of the provisions of the local village code regulating individual massage therapists, as is done in the state. So that's on licensing. The state licenses the
Right.
individual practitioners, the village licenses the business.
Correct, and then this item is not really tied to licensing, it's tied to location of these establishments and defining the nature of the establishments. So we've separated into 3 different definitions for massage therapy, for fitness centers, and for medical clinics. And so these definitions are a little more detailed, and with these definitions, it provides more clarity to the licensing officials as to what would be allowed and where.
Yeah, I think that it was a good improvement. One of the things we noted last month was that there had been, by this board, in 1999, there had been a zoning code amendment for massage therapy, but then it was, for some reason, withdrawn again by Planning and Zoning Commission in July of that year.
I remember when we were
thought maybe-
discouraging it because a lot of them turned out to be less than massage, more than massage. And I think we stuck them in the manufacturing zone, which was in fact a good way of outlawing it. And then I didn't remember are withdrawing that.
Yeah. So but the same year it was approved, it was withdrawn. And I thought there was a story there, and you might be able to.
No, I don't know why it was
illuminate us.
withdrawn.
Well, I've reviewed this and have no questions. Why don't we start with, again, Commissioner Lavoy?
I don't really have any issues, so I'm good.
Good.
She's ready to vote, she said.
Yeah, I'm ready to vote.
Just one clarification, I'm not sure if I brought this up last meeting. The massage therapy establishments are permitted in the B1 and B2, but I don't see them listed in the C1 district. So the Massage Envy or some, am I correct that they're not listed?
I don't remember what the reasoning was on that at this point. I think it's because we were considering those to be secondary ancillary to like a fitness center or a medical clinic, but not a dedicated massage clinic in the C1 district because of the nature of those, for example, 63rd and Cass. It would fit more in a B2 or B1 to be a dedicated, smaller footprint, that kind of thing.
I know the goal in the C1 originally was to generate more retail type uses. That was the hope with the redevelopment of 63rd and Cass. The market's changed. There's less retail development. It's more service-oriented development. So I don't care one way or the other. I was just asking whether they are appropriate there or not. If someone wants to open a standalone massage establishment in the C1 district, they'd have to come in and ask for a text amendment. Which is a lot of work. So I just wanted to ask the questions, see what everyone's thoughts are.
We can revisit that if we want to discuss. I think we had also talked about the franchises that were coming in and their space requirements, and it seemed like those would be more appropriate in the B2 as well. So I just see more of the footprints being larger and more traffic. Providing for that space to be for more appropriate businesses that could use the parking and the regional aspects rather than, the B2, which could be more of a kind of day-to-day neighborhood type.
So if a health club went in and offered ancillary massage services, they'd have to get licensed by the village, but they wouldn't need zoning approval because it's not the primary business.
Correct. So it would be the individual that is licensed and the business that is licensed that would be providing secondary services to the,
Okay.
fitness center.
And we don't do the licenses for the person, that's state.
There is some licensing that goes on at the village level.
You're right.
There are background checks and things like that.
Not
No,
for the
anymore?
individual.
Individual person, right, that's right.
Yeah, usually we do it of the owners as part of the establishment license, but we don't license the individual massage therapists.
Right.
That's right.
There was one thing, since this is all licensed by the state, I think at our last meeting I brought up that, if that entity is in good standing with the state, and it's easily a lookup kind of thing, want to make sure that the licensing body is up to par and that we're not approving something that either license has been either revoked or some other problem at the state level.
So when someone wants to come in and operate here, first they'd look at the underlying zoning, okay, it's permitted. But then they have to make an application for a massage establishment license, and there's a thorough background check that's done by the Deputy Liquor Commissioner does it in conjunction with the police department. There's background checks. They look into the entity itself. They make sure that anyone who's working there has their state massage therapist licenses, et cetera. So that's not really the purview of this commission.
No, I understand, but my comment was really driven around, since everyone else outside of the village is doing that licensure and that review and that basically maintaining the licensure either by fee or by education or whatever it is, that there is a discipline report that comes out by the Department of Professional Regulation that controls massage therapists and entities that do that kind of operation, and they control it. My comment was really directed about, are they in good standing or not? So it's a real simple review to the end, just look it up and see if they're in good standing, so we know that their licenses are good.
And that is something that the licensing official, the commissioner,
Now,
looks
if we could
at.
build that in somehow, that, you know, that's part of our making sure that that's accurate, that a certificate of good standing is the way to do it, because then you have something paper copy that when we do this and when they ask for it, yeah, it's here and this has been verified.
And as part of the building review, if you look on page 5, there are footnotes that talk about that they have obtained required state and local licenses and certifications to duly operate as a massage therapy establishment. So that is one of the,
Doesn't mean they're in good
criteria.
standing, though. That doesn't mean that.
Good standing, yeah.
Yeah, that means that could be under discipline, they could have a license, but it could be suspended, it could be.
Well, I think you're talking about massage therapist
Right.
licenses.
Yeah.
They do it for businesses too, I believe.
Just to be clear, the village is the sole regulatory authority over massage establishments, the businesses. So that's where we do this comprehensive check to make sure, are you a corporation? Is your corporation in good standing? Are you?
That's where I'm at, is, you know.
We do that already.
If we do that already, was my question. Can we make that part of that review? And there's the answer, you do.
Yes.
Okay,
If I
so,
could just add something? We do that all through the licensing, which is not part of this commission's purview.
Right.
Really, the only question in front of you now is where in this community do you want to allow these types of
Understood.
uses? And what's in front of you would say it's allowed in the B1 and the B2 districts, but not in the C1. This is your opportunity. If you, and C1 for Matt, you're newer, mostly down by 63rd and Cass is our primary C1 district. If you think that that should also be an area where massage should be allowed, speak up now. We can add it before it goes to the board. Or if you're comfortable with the draft as it is, and massage would only be allowed in the B1 and the B2, then we'll leave it alone.
Okay, but if that C1 is 63rd and Cass and LA Fitness, if they have as part of their procedure.
The way the rules are drafted, that's allowed already because it's an
That's what I thought.
ancillary use.
That's what I thought.
But the question is.
Right, if it's a standalone.
If you're all familiar with Massage Envy, it's a company, that's all they do. If you don't want a Massage Envy type business at 63rd, leave this draft alone. If you think, well, maybe we want something like a Massage Envy down at 63rd and Cass, say that you want this
I want it
change.
the way it is.
You like it the way it is.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
we don't, I don't think we're restricting it too badly by not including C1. Any other strong opinions?
I don't have a strong opinion. I don't have a problem with them being at 63rd. It would be up to them to find a building that would not be too big for them.
Right.
Or too small, you know, I mean,
And it would have
it's
to
up
be-
to them to find a location.
And it would have to be in the B1 or the B2 district.
Right.
Or as.
Or we have to do a
attorney just
text
mentioned.
Or,
They typically, a massage envy typically goes in a strip center, I mean, a commercialized strip center, so that would be an ideal spot for them to go if they wanted to go in there.
And there are plenty of those, I think,
Rather
along
than
the
strip club.
Ogden.
All right.
Very good.
Can we just go ahead and make a motion to approve the language the way it is?
I would
okay,
entertain the
so,
motion to
so a
approve the
yes,
language
so a
as
yes
it
would be
stands.
leave it the way it is, and a no would be you want something else, then we have to do something else to add it, then.
Yeah, staff would have to include
Yeah, right.
C1
So-
in the.
Sorry for that confusion, John, I just,
right.
thinking about
you do.
before, that's why.
The chair would entertain a motion to.
He's already made the motion, didn't you?
I did.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, motion has been made and
Van Buren
second,
seconded.
and discussion on the motion. Roll call, please.
Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Thomas?
No,
Okay. Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
And Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Motion passes.
Good job.
We're so buried in paper that I can't
So
find the
difficult to
next
work with.
agenda item.
Miscellaneous.
I think you got them all.
Miscellaneous.
I like that.
Any comments or announcements?
Yeah, Bruce got it.
I have one very brief announcement. I cannot be specific, but I believe that at next month's meeting, our vacant commissioner seat will be filled via an appointment at a board meeting coming up in the next few weeks. I think I'm not allowed to say any more than that, but just a heads up that that is in process.
Okay, any word on what's gonna happen beyond, what we already know about on 63rd and Cass?
In terms of the buildings that are going in?
Yeah.
Yep, I can give you a quick update. So the LA Fitness obviously is up and out of the ground, and construction is going quickly. The Raising Cane's building is almost done. They hope to open next week.
Grand opening next
14th.
Tuesday.
They've scheduled a grand opening, but they've painted themselves into a corner because they don't have all of their DuPage County Public Health Department approvals. So we're telling them they need to get that done, or else they're not going to be able to. They can have a grand opening, but they won't be able to serve any food. More recently, you will recall that you reviewed and recommended approval of a change to the uses, the mix of uses in that development, to eliminate the theater and replace it with what the developers called a mystery grocer, because they're not willing to reveal who their tenant end user is. That building, which is central on the site where the old theater had planned to be, they're in for permits, and we're reviewing the permits, the plans to issue a permit. They're pushing us hard.
But they're not telling us what,
They're not telling us who the tenant is.
okay, it's a, what,
It's a
they
retailer.
called it a boutique grocer or something like that.
I'd prefer, Wally, not to speculate publicly. You can privately, but
Okay.
let's not bring that into the,
But that building, they've already got foundation work done, and now we're reviewing plans so that they can get the rest of the building up. The final piece, to answer your question, is there's a multi-tenant building closest to Cast, so furthest east in that project, that will be anchored by a Starbucks. That is an end user that they've revealed. That building has also already got their foundation in the ground, and as soon as we conclude our review of the building plans, you'll start to see walls come up probably in the next month.
Okay. And this project next door here, the Holiday,
Moving quickly, there's the plat that needs to be finalized, and that's moving quickly. And they have told us that they plan to submit their plans for building permits next week. So that's usually a 2 or 3 cycle review and revision process. Once that's done in the next couple of months, then you'll start to see construction activity over there.
okay, and anything further happening on Pleasant Corner over here at this development?
So very briefly, and John and Nalini can chime in if I miss anything, that developer took a very long time to negotiate an economic incentive agreement with the village. That was finalized a while ago.
preliminarily.
Preliminarily. And then there was a lull where we were like, okay, come in now with your plans for the actual development. So then at the mayor's urging, the attorney drafted basically an agreement that specified a timeline for them to meet with in terms of you need to turn things on this date. Staff will review it by this date. We'll get it up in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission on this date to try to get some traction for that project.
And so, hard work. Thank you, everybody, for your input tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Cheers.
Second, Thomas.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting